You may tell us that. No. Oh, yes, indeed. Something is not right.
You know, having been within that system, he was our first Chief Justice after the promulgation of our Constitution, was he not?
Yes, he was.
So he has had time to reflect. What might have happened, what could have been done, what could have been looked at differently. Yes.
He has had time to look at his own
tenure.
His own tenure.
Yes. What he did, what he could have done differently. There's always that aspect, and that is often the beauty of what we call hindsight.
This is it, eh?
Hindsight
2020.
Also, yes.
Okay, we'll also discuss the budget, obviously, and the big winners and the losers in this budget, and whether there are actually any winners and losers, and how much is the budget. 2.7 trillion, 3.2 trillion, 2.79 trillion.
Which is it?
You just know how much you need to cough up.
Divided by.
That's all that matters. How much are you contributing to that budget? That's all that matters. But first, let's start with taking a look at the weather, and then we'll come and look at COVID-19 and then go into the headlines. We are seeing that Anne Waiguru suffered a setback yesterday at the courts, and this matter is going straight to the Senate. Let us see what the Senate will say and how the Senate will do. 17 minutes after 6. Good morning.
...24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo-soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, taking a look at what it's looking like in the skies today. Nairobi, mostly cloudy at 14 degrees. Chances of showers quite high, highs of 23 and lows of 14. Nyeri looking like a wet weekend as well. 22 degrees the high with thunderstorms that are going to carry well into Saturday. Currently at 14 degrees and partly cloudy. It's partly cloudy in Nakuru at 13 degrees. Showers expected later with highs of 23. And lows of 13. It's partly cloudy in Eldoret at 12 degrees and highs of 19 and lows of 12 with scattered thunderstorms. Kisumu is partly cloudy at 19 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 18. And yes, there will be showers there through most of the weekend as well. Kakamega will follow in full form with thunderstorms already forecasted and starting in some parts, highs of 23 and lows of 14. It's partly cloudy in Mombasa at 24 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 23. Malindi as well at 26 degrees is partly cloudy, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Kakamega at 16 degrees is partly cloudy, thunderstorms expected later. then with highs of 23. All right, let's take a look then into East Africa and Kampala weather. Currently, partly cloudy conditions at 18 degrees. It'll be a wet weekend here as well. Highs of 25 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is clear this morning at 22 degrees. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 21. In Johannesburg, today, it's freezing, currently at 0 degrees. We'll see only a high of 9 and lows of -2. The winter is in full form down south. And in Lagos, at 26 degrees, clear skies this morning. That goes into showery conditions later with highs of 28 and lows of 23. Let's take a look into New York, where it's still Thursday night. 23 degrees, partly cloudy conditions. It'll get to a high of 25 and a low of 21 today. Paris at 15 degrees, clear skies, but thunderstorms warning for later. Highs of 21 and lows of 13. And finally in London at 14 degrees, it's mostly cloudy. Highs of 22 and lows of 13.
Of the 6, good morning, and thank you very much for tuning in to Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. As we get into the conversation, Ndu,
yes.
So what is the new figure, COVID-19 number in Kenya?
Eric,
now it's just become a number.
This is a loaded question. Well, this is true. It seems as if it's a number. Then
Now we're at 3,200
for reportage only. Okay, so excuse me, Kenya. With the added numbers that we are seeing over time now, Kenya, 3,215 cases reported in the country. And with 92 deaths, things seem to have, continued in this way. We'll probably see more time of, numbers 120, 160, maybe ramp up to 200 at some point as testing continues. So it just seems like this is the normal, or the new normal, as it were.
She's just still operating in the hundreds.
Yes, still operating in the hundreds.
Okay.
World figures. Now we're looking at an increase, and it seems like tired news or like a broken record. But the US now even a little bit more worried, and this is coming from health experts, more worried than they were the day before yesterday, where they're saying that, it can't be. When it was just 12 states where they were worried about increased numbers, now they're looking at 20 states with an increased number of infections, and they are attributing this to the protests that are happening in the US, because now everybody's together. In terms of social distancing, that is not happening at all. And the numbers in the US at 2,089,701 with 116 deaths, with 116,034 deaths. And their prediction is that in the next couple of months, they will see 200,000 deaths in the continental United States. All right. So those are high numbers, as you know. Brazil is inching very close to 1 million cases, 805,649 with 41,058 deaths. They will.
Soon.
Very soon. Because, the increase is incredible.
But more importantly, their president seems very determined to open up the economy.
This is something that he said a while ago,
even
very before things got worse. He
seems very, very determined.
Determined to do so, and it's likely that this will be the...
He doesn't have people who read news about Africa. They could quote Burundi for him. But nonetheless, please carry on.
Okay. Looking at numbers where there seems to be we talked about Pakistan the other day, and we did this juxtaposing against what was happening in India. Now, in the last 24 hours, Pakistan has recorded 6,397 cases with 107 deaths. Something is going on here as well. It could be that there's more testing that's happening, but at the same time, again, we look at the number of deaths quite high. Let's go even further to Mexico, where in the last 24 hours, 4,790 cases with 587 deaths in the last 6 hours. So they're looking at a little over 10%, of the reported cases per day are ending in death per day. So if you want to look at that with the numbers, again, this is quite worrying.
Yep,
Whereby
that's
you
a
see other
high
countries that are just recording cases but are not
But not
recording
recording
deaths.
deaths.
But they're looking at a high percentage of deaths per caseload that is found. So these are higher numbers that we are seeing in Mexico, and they seem to be taking a brunt of this. Of what is going on here, and we continue to see the same thing happening in Central and Southern America.
I continue to hope that the cases in Africa, particularly, are not going to change in terms of deaths. All right, the number of positive cases are definitely going to change. We're going to see an increase in positive cases for a while. But I'm just hoping that we are not going to start saying that Africa is the new epicenter of this disease, going towards the end of the year, and then you start seeing a sharp rise in deaths. Yeah, after all has been said and done, after all the back and forth and questions and sort of patting ourselves on the back and saying maybe God has spared us this one. I just hope.
It would be quite unfortunate.
I just hope. Yeah, there's that fear that just keep lingering over, Anyway, let me just tell you before we look at the other big headlines. I was just looking through and I saw this particular one, and it's related to Corona. We are talking about home-based care being rolled out shortly. There's an MCA who's decided to put himself on home-based care. That's the assumption that we can make here, because police in Migori and the county's health department are hunting for a nominated female MCA who disappeared from an isolation center. She had gone underground for a week after coming into contact with a person who tested positive for COVID-19. She was arrested and taken to isolation, but she left after 2 days. Remember we talked about this particular MCA who was being looked for because she had come into contact through contact tracing. She had been identified to have come into contact with somebody who was tested positive, but she had gone under. Caught up with her, took her into isolation. She decided, Mimi,
I don't have.
She has gone.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But serious determination to evade this. I do not. What do you think is going through her mind?
Obviously,
at that first time when she was like, "Atinani corona, so they're coming for me, missing,
away,
go under."
Actually, ask yourself what would be going on through the minds of most Kenyans, because it's not a question of just running away from a quarantine center. It's running away and avoiding hospitals.
Yeah.
Because the moment you say people are going to be tested and there's lack of clarity, or the clarity that is being presented is actually not, should we say, readily acceptable, then you have a problem on your hands. No one will want to be tested, because the future that awaits you once you've been tested is not something that people are looking forward to.
There's still a lot of stigma in the society.
Stigma, but also
fear.
Stigmas are the heart of it. But remember, even before the issue of home testing, home-based care came into being, the quarantine centers themselves had raised a lot of issues.
Yep.
Okay? So when you have such a situation and you don't find clarity, or you don't find declarations of clarity on the issue, then it's not as though the stigma will reduce. It will actually increase. And with it, fear. So now, it's not just a question of taking yourself to hospital. People will avoid testing.
The other thing that's also emerging, right? If you got ill and you had malaria, you tell people, hey, I'm joining on malaria. You'll tell people freely. If you had a cold, you'll tell people freely, I have a cold. If you test COVID-19 positive, how many people are willing to just go and tell people, you know what, I've tested positive for COVID, guys, so I'm going into isolation. I'll come back next week, or I'm isolating at home. How many are willing to do that? And why not? Right? We saw the provost of the All Saints Cathedral went public with his status. We've seen other people globally going public with their status. Prime Minister of the UK, the wife of the Canadian Prime Minister, and others. They just say, well, I've tested positive. I'm going to go into isolation, and then I'll come out. And it's okay. But in this country, how many people today, how many do we have active cases? How many of them are willing to actually come out and say, you know what, I've tested positive
I have this
for COVID-19?
At the risk of sounding like some very tired old bell, the reason why South Africa, I'm repeating this again, has been able to manage their conditions because they have used existing systems. HIV didn't go away. It's a virus. It came with more stigma than you can imagine, even more than COVID.
Yeah.
That over time has been managed. There are people who are trained to deal with stigma. There are people who are trained to deal with home-based care or even testing.
Yeah.
And they know what to do. Why? Because they are trained in counseling. Here we keep talking about, training people, doing this. Have you heard of the government making a statement and saying, we want to utilize the existing systems that we've had in our fight against HIV? It's not as though they're different people. They're the same people.
The same population.
They live in the same country, and they will understand what to do when it comes to stigma or when it comes to this. All you need to do is tell them now, this thing is called COVID.
Yeah.
And this is what you want this is the information we want you to pass across.
Yeah.
Stigma is stigma. But we do not. So, by the time they come around to understanding that we already have dealt with these same issues of stigma in the country, and we've actually overcome them, to the point where people would openly talk about ARVs.
Yeah.
No hiding, no going to the toilet. You're having a chat, someone takes his pills, puts them on the
Puts them
table,
there.
says, get me some water, please. Says, it's time, I need to take my medication.
Yeah.
Simple. Now, COVID, at some level, is far, far more lethal than HIV. Because it can kill you within a short space of time.
Yeah, with HIV.
You have it, people like
chance
this,
of- Yeah.
eons. You will live.
Yeah.
This one, you're not sure. Your respiratory system can be endangered, it can be constricted, and before you can say Jack Robinson, you're gone.
You're
You're
gone.
gone.
Yes. So, and all these things need to be communicated, and why it's important for people to get testing. Have you heard of effort by the government to say, look, we've set this effort in communities to explain to people why it is testing is important?
Nothing. Nothing.
Just come and be tested. We're testing.
Yeah. And if you continue to treat this disease normally,
It will treat you.
it will treat you abnormally. 6:30, it's a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, actually 28 minutes to 7. Let's take a look at traffic. And then we start pouring through the newspaper headlines. Good morning.
Good on most of the roads today. Coming off of Mombasa Road and Thika Road as well. We don't have an issue so far. It's a Friday morning and perhaps a sleepy wake up for a lot of people. And even though those who've gotten out have gotten out and done so well, we don't have many issues with traffic so far. I have a feeling that might change in a short while though. We'll let you know. But for now, take it easy in whichever direction you're going. Some of the roads in the capital are a bit slippery, so you want to be careful. We'll take a look at what's happening in other towns around the country. But for now, traffic shouldn't pose too much of a problem. And we'll let you know when and if it does. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Let us know what you see, if you see it. And we'll make sure everybody keeps it moving this Friday morning.
So we're going to have an open conversation on budget in the 9 o'clock hour. But because it's the big headline of the day, let's just look into it quickly. What are the papers saying?
A budget to the rescue is what the Standard is calling this today. Balancing act from tax incentives to cash transfers and Kazim Tani to loans to small businesses. The CS hopes the 2.79 trillion shilling budget will heal an economy hit by the coronavirus, an escalating health crisis, massive job losses, and shrinking revenues. So, just looking at the winners, as it were, from what he announced yesterday: roads and youth, 15 billion; education, 7.4 billion; manufacturing, 600 million; health, 1.7 billion. And just looking at now what these particular sectors will be able to do with this budgetary allocation. Roads, for example, rehabilitate roads and footbridges, and the Kazim Tani program that targets some 200,000 youth. So these are what are being declared the winners. To build classrooms, buy desks, and recruit 11,000 intern teachers with a 7.4 billion in education. To buy locally assembled vehicles and to support the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. And this is what the 600 million would be set aside for, and a further 712 million for loans in SMEs in the manufacturing sector. The 1.7 billion that has been allocated in health is to hire 5,000 health workers, buy 20,000 beds, and 50 walk-through sanitizers at border posts and main hospitals. The 13 billion that has been allocated to small businesses is for seed capital and cheap loans. The 7.9 billion to farmers is to subsidize farm inputs for 200,000 small-scale farmers. The 2.4 billion in water, environment and floods is for flood control, rehabilitation of wells, water pans and underground tanks. And so other winners: tax amnesty, tourism, Konza City has reared its head, and the Big Four agenda, which has received or will receive 128.3 billion to support affordable housing, food security, manufacturing, and access to healthcare.
So it's a budget to the rescue.
However, part of this budget, which unfortunately we're still looking at, is to go towards paying national debts, country debts. So it looks as if, still all right, there's certain things that would come to the rescue of sectors that were already ailing, such as those that we've looked at here, and things that need some kind of emergency response. So the budget seemed to have been very well tailored towards where there were already some kinks in the chain, and certain areas where there were problems that we could see as far back as November last year, looking at things like flooding and other water resources. They seem to be getting a boost here. It seems that some people have also called this budget a reactionary budget. But like I said, we'll talk about that later. But just giving the...
What does the nation call it in the headline?
Well, it's called a budget for bad times. Retirees, alcohol manufacturers, online businesses, and loss-making firms slapped with taxes in a statement that had little good news for millions of Kenyans.
Yeah, I think that's closer to it.
That's what it really looks like.
Yeah. Every year, without fail, every year around June, when the finance minister goes to the assembly and delivers the budget, the following day or immediately after that, everybody who's talking about it says, I like this aspect of it. I like this and the other. I like. I was happy to hear the CS saying, I'm feeling optimistic because of this and that. I think we just got into that point where it's a cycle. Our immediate reaction to every budget is, I like. I'm at that point where I'm just feeling, no, I don't like. I just do not. I don't feel like this budget or the government is reacting to where we are at right now. Talking about, it's a stimulus budget, it's going to revive the economy. But it's looking at, on the other side, just like a couple of economists have said, look, so you want to spend 11.8 billion shillings on the Konza City this financial year.
This financial year. Why? Like, that's why I said out of the blue.
This financial year. All right, so you can say that if you allocate 11.8 billion shillings to development of Konza City, you're actually talking about 11.8 billion shillings going to the people, because people are going to be employed. I mean, we are talking about constructing, building up, doing the roads, putting up infrastructure. So you could say this is a direct way of saying that the government is going to employ people at the Konza City, and 11.8 billion shillings is going to be spent in the local economy. You could look at it that way.
I could, but I would also ask the question, once you've put up those buildings, this is a business venture. What is this business that they are going to do that will guarantee us a return on this investment of ours? Because this is an investment.
Yep.
Yes. What is it that they're going to do? that is going to A, continue employing people, and B, turn over profit.
Yeah. Is it aligned to like kicking off after this?
I would take
I think
that
we've wasted 7 years. From that moment when Kibaki launched this thing just before he retired from office, in the last 7 years, a lot could have been done to develop the Konza city. This particular financial year, come on.
In terms of
Of all
priority,
times.
in terms of
I'm not
priority,
sure.
I don't see
I'm
that it
not
falls
sure.
in the first few lines of priority with everything else that's being faced at the moment. I mean, like you say, it's been ignored for the last however long. What difference is it going to make now at this time with everything else that is going on?
The other one is now this Kazi Mtaani program. The Kazi Mtaani, yes, it's on paper.
Haven't
sounds
we had
like
something
good.
which is the equivalent of this before?
Complete. And how much is it getting? 15 billion shillings to go to employing the youth to rehabilitate roads, footbridges, and to collect garbage.
The problem that we had with the National Youth Service, if you recall correctly, was that the ministry under which that particular department belonged had been allocated a huge amount of money at that particular point in time.
Yep.
And it was intended, or it was supposed to be directed towards something of this sort, was
Yep.
it not?
Yep.
What one saw was a sporadic employment of youth on a temporary basis to clean gutters and to cut grass. I'm actually saying what I saw.
That's what was happening.
That's what was
yes.
going on.
And then thereafter, there arose a small issue of people not being paid for the work they had done.
Yep.
And thereafter, it died.
And then during that same period, there arose a small matter of other people being paid for work that they had not done and carrying that money in gunny bags.
Yes.
Right? In
Yep.
the Nusumkata government, we had the Kazi kwa Vijana program.
We did.
Same story. This one, Kazi Mtaani, 15 billion shillings. The problem is, how are we going to ensure that
And
this
did
helps?
they even
And
take the
then-
time to train people as to how to access? Because the complaint was, how do you access it? And
How do
those
you
who-
then go and
Yes.
make an application as it
Those
were?
who applied, because I would ask, and they tell me, hey, we've applied, but there's no response. You know, it reminds me of this program.
In fact, that is a youth fund. You see, the youth fund, you can say you're applying to get a loan to start your own business. This is direct cash to the people. Completely amorphous, where you're saying that you're recruiting your biggest workforce in the country, the youth. You're recruiting them to carry sacks to do garbage collection.
This thing is not well thought out.
Do garbage collection, employ them to
this
work
thing-
in the rehabilitation of roads and footbridges. Are they trained? What are they going to be doing? So basically, you're saying that your trained population is going to be doing manual work.
You know, Eric, if someone had told me, now I'm speaking purely as a layman, and if it sounds a little theoretical, it is. If someone told me that they were expanding National Youth Service training and facilities right across the country, I would say, makes sense.
Yeah.
Because then, when you roll out these people, they have some training.
They have.
And then you could say, we are going to allocate this amount of money in ensuring that people are placed. This money goes, so you want to pay people, place them in places which correspond with their training.
Yes.
If there are people who've learned construction, take them to
Take them to
construct.
construction.
But this money helps pay for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the experience that they would lack, they now have. Then you'd say, aha, it makes sense. So you have,
We are working through TVETs
Yes.
to offer internship or apprenticeship,
Yes.
blah, 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 blah,
Yes.
in the repair of roads and
Yes.
footbridges and other trade.
yes.
It's okay. This one, we are saying that you go and mop up youth in this village and tell them, kujeni musafishe barabara.
If you
Mkate
told them,
nyasi.
no. That doesn't make
how
sense
you-
because think
do you
about it as
engage
you
your
say
youth
correctly
in
with the
that?
TVETs. If say you said you want to upgrade the TVETs in all our counties, and you see, you then have a youthful workforce, and each and every county has need for that particular training. And you're saying this is the money we have to ensure that they can actually work and they can get remuneration.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But you're telling us you allocate this money, and with the greatest of vaguenesses, you want to now tell us that you want to use this money in ensuring that the youth get employed.
Yes.
We ask you a very simple question. How? How?
How?
Yes. What process
So
do you want?
you're basically telling the youth, amka asubuhi, you go and look for something to do, and then if you come across somebody who's employing people to sweep the road,
Just jump in there.
Yeah,
Literally.
cut
See
grass.
if you can join.
There are already people who are employed to cut grass in each and every country. It's called the Environment Department.
Yes. In each county.
We
there are people in
them.
Nairobi whose job it is to collect garbage.
We have them already.
Now bringing in few others.
No.
Even Sonko Rescue Team is doing this job.
Sonko Rescue Team had people in terms of beautification of the city of Nairobi, and he was paying them out of his pocket. Right? So if you want to look at that and say, okay, this is clearly a system that seemed to have worked. Was he able to round up a number of youth and say, okay, you guys are looking for
something? He did that a long time ago.
You guys are looking for something to do? Well, you might as well then help in the work that we are doing as a county, right? Whether it was, cutting the grass, whether it was, clearing up garbage, whatever it was. There were some people, and it was a clear system. You work, you're paid. We move on to the next place which needs some kind of attention. And it was done. Seemed like that was a scheme that would work very well.
When
if some kind of attention was applied.
Service, you have a structure within which you can absorb the youth.
Yeah.
Okay.
A very well organized structure.
And
very
if it
well
isn't
structured
there,
structure.
You can work with the existing TVETs in the counties. There is so much you can do with what we already have. Forget creating new. And ensuring that the youth are occupied.
Yes.
And occupied with the hope, knowing when I leave here, this is where I'm going to go and this is what I'm going to do. Now, they become productive and it makes sense. And every county will have a program that guarantees that their youth are gainfully occupied.
Especially that bit of gainful employment.
Yes.
Employment for employment's sake.
No.
Is
sweeping, collecting garbage. No, nonsense.
Anyway, we'll look into the budget in detail in the 9 o'clock hour, where we'll also ask to get your feedback on this. Some of these initiatives. This is contained in the economic stimulus package that was even unveiled by the president 2 weeks ago. 15 billion shillings going to the youth. There's money that's going to hire health workers, 5,000 health workers. But there's a rider, even in what the president said. They will be employed for 1 year. Now, what happens after that is not clear. So we're mopping up people who have gone through KMTCs, who've gone through university and trained as doctors, dentists, public health officers and all, medical officers and all, and we'll employ them for 1 year. And then we will cross the bridge as we encounter them, hoping the youth will have rehabilitated those bridges in good time. 12 minutes to 7. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning.
You are tuned in to Nairobi's #1 soul station, Spice FM. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Spice up your life.
Other headlines apart from what we heard from Kuriatani yesterday.
Okay, it's a small headline, but it's a big deal. Waiguru's Senate D-Day, court blow. Kirinyaga governor Anne Waiguru now looks up to the Senate to decide on her fate after a court threw out her attempt to declare her impeachment null and void. Okay, so we know that she took to court yesterday, hoping that the entire process would have been basically shut down. That didn't happen. And the Senate could start the process of impeaching Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru or save her from the chop after ward representatives formally notified Speaker Ken Lusaka, the MCAs, rather the members of County Assembly, led by Majority Leader James Morango, submitted to Mr. Lusaka a notification of the County's Assembly's resolution, Hansard, charges, evidence, and a signed list of all the 23 lawmakers who voted in favor of the motion to impeach Waiguru on Tuesday. Section 33 of the County Governments Act 2012 stipulates that County Assembly Speaker should inform the Senate counterpart of the Assembly's resolution within 2 days, which they have essentially done. And according to Mr. Ken Lusaka, I have called for a special House Business Committee meeting on today, that was at 2:30, that was yesterday, to deliberate on whether we will form a committee to investigate the claims or the governor shall defend herself before the plenary. So this is what we see
Hope it
happening
goes
now.
to plenary. Let us see. Just like Waitito, let us see. Hope this one goes to plenary as well. Okay? And, when we were talking about this the day after it happened, many of the people who were even calling in were saying, okay, so this, don't look at it as a Senate. The Senate is not going to make its own independent decision. So this decision is coming from the top, so to speak. So what does the top think? Clips emerge of the president speaking in Kirinyaga earlier this year, where he was saying, MCAs, you need to be really on the lookout and watch and make sure that people's money goes to benefit the people. And Chunga, and a clip emerges showing that the president was basically speaking in Kirinyaga, and he was alluding to the fact that MCAs needed to play their watchdog role more keenly. And he was alluding to issues on the ground, that there was a complaint about misappropriation of funds. And he was basically cheering on the MCAs and telling them, do your job. Do what you're supposed to do. And he also turned to the governor and said, Ann, Chunga, you have seen what's happening elsewhere.
It could reverberate even further.
So,
The last time
we're wondering what they said.
somebody was given that advance warning. The gentleman's name is Ngujiri.
Which Ngunjiri?
No, I'm actually getting it wrong. The former Minister for Agriculture.
Kionjuri.
Kiunjuri.
Yes.
Yes, sounds quite similar to Ngujiri.
Yes, it does.
Kiunjuri. He was warned several times in public, and we know how that worked out, don't we? Yes,
In the end.
in the end. If you look at the direction this thing is taking, just observe. This is these are clouds that portend rain.
It's a heavy
Yes.
cloud.
Yes. Look at the political times in which we now live, right? And look at what the government under Uhuru is trying to do. They are trying to paint a very clear picture of being a no-nonsense government that do not want to joke around with anything that influences or affects the mwananchi. And anyone who is caught in a situation that, or if they are found to be culpable of doing just that, then they have themselves to blame.
Yep.
This isn't going to be easy for very many governors.
This one. Initially, before that clip re-emerged, because again, you have also to remember that a clip does not just re-emerge.
No, it
No, no,
doesn't.
no.
It doesn't.
It does not just re-emerge.
Not by mistake. Okay. Speaking of things that could have been done by mistake, but then were glaringly otherwise, we see, the issues of police brutality are springing up all over the world, okay? But in Kenya, it continues. And there's a story of, a lady who had been tied to a motorcycle, a boda and was dragged. And that video then leaked on social media. Mercy Chirono is nursing a broken leg, soft tissue injuries to her arm, and a wound on her forehead after a Sunday ordeal. What happened, in essence, was that allegedly, a plainclothes police officer tied her to a motorbike and dragged her on the tarmac. Mercy Chirono, 21, is recuperating at the, I don't know how to say that, sub-county hospital in Nakuru County after the ordeal on Sunday. Olenguruone. Yeah?
Olenguruone.
Yeah. So, she said the officer had accused her of breaking into his house and stealing a laptop and clothes. She has denied the claims, saying it could be a case of mistaken identity. The policeman suspected I was among the people who broke into his house, I quote, and stole the items on Sunday morning. She said the officer found her relaxing outside her rented house in town and demanded she follows him. They joined a group of people standing by the roadside. He removed a rope from his motorbike, tied both of my hands, and attached the rope to the motorbike. The officer dragged her for 200 meters as he rode the motorbike and stopped only when the crowd intervened. A 1-minute, 30-second video clip, which has now gone viral on social media, shows Chirono pleading for mercy as the officer rides the motorbike.
That thing was, it was
quite disheartening
painful.
to watch.
It was painful. And you can feel the pain, especially knowing that this is a police officer. Well, the good thing is that we saw the county regional coordinator for the Rift Valley and the regional police boss. They actually went to visit this lady in hospital yesterday.
They did. Yeah.
And Natembea spoke the way he speaks.
He was clear.
He didn't leave any stones unturned.
Even in explaining the chronology.
Yeah.
Oh, this woman, then she was lynched. Unajua vile Wakenya wanafanyanga. He lynched the woman, police officer, did this and the other, and action is going to be taken on it.
IPOA has gotten involved in this.
IPOA has already said that this officer will face charges, which is a good thing. This one bad apple, like somebody said, the police service is not one place where you can talk about, the police are generally good. Eh? We only have a few bad apples. You cannot afford to have a few bad apples, because even one bad apple means that an ordinary citizen's rights are being infringed upon. Somebody could actually be losing their life because of this one bad apple.
Do you know
A life
why?
lost.
You know why that phrase is so common, and do you know why they refer to apples as opposed to other fruits? An apple is one of those fruits that you actually don't put together or next to other fruits. You don't put them in, say, a container or bowl with the other fruit.
With mangoes,
No,
and
you
oranges.
don't. You don't. It will actually affect the other fruits adversely.
How?
What happens is, if fruit are not eaten, they ripen and then they go bad.
Yes.
Apples will hasten that process.
Aye.
Actually, if you want to ripen another fruit and you put it together with an apple,
It'll ripen.
it'll ripen.
Quicker than it ordinarily would.
This is peer pressure. Bad influence.
Well, that's the way you could look at it.
Well,
that's one way to look at it.
That's certainly one way of looking at it, but that's what happens, yes.
Bad influence.
It's horrible, terrible influence.
One
yes.
bad apple is bad for the entire basket.
Oh, yes.
It's
Not just apples, of other fruits.
other fruits.
Yes.
There's the story of, I'll tell you the story of another bad apple, and we know the police service bad apple. Man was killed in Mathare the other day.
The guy was shot.
The story of that man has actually been told in the Standard today. It's a moving story. We'll look at that in the next hour. But just talking about the bad apples, someone was actually saying, police, bad apple, you cannot afford to have bad apple. It's like saying pilots. Kenya Air is telling us, all our pilots are really good. Eh? We just have a few bad apples. That one bad apple could be the one who just decides
Spoils
to fly the plane onto a hill.
Exactly.
To a mountain.
It could be the case.
We cannot afford to have a few bad apples in some
It's not just a question of having a few bad apples anywhere. The idea is not to have them, period.
Yeah, don't have.
So when you do, it's an anomaly that is corrected immediately.
Right. So
It's
if you
not-
see it, then you remove it.
It's not
remove the
something
bad
that
apple.
you
Yeah.
entertain and say,
It's
well,
not-
you're still a few.
it's a-
No. No. We have this term we keep referring to in this country, it is zero tolerance. If you apply it, that's precisely what it means.
Zero.
Zero.
We're not going to take
No,
any
no,
of it.
no. The moment, if you want to understand this, look at the way Americans have been reacting to issues of racism. The lady with her dog in the park,
Yep.
which was not on a leash. The thing that happened to that lady, she lost her job. God knows what happened. God knows what happened.
lost the
A
dog.
series of things happened. But I think she has a lot of time to rue over the day when she did what she did.
Yep.
And the apology was not sufficient.
Yep.
The policemen who have been known to have done things that can immediately be connected to racism, people are resigning. But others, direct action, not action has been taken tomorrow, threatened, it's taken.
Taken immediately.
Suspended, you've lost your job, you're being prosecuted.
You're done.
And what it means is, you at the end of your tether, this job of yours has come to an end.
Quisha.
Look
This
for
is
another
it.
job.
And good luck finding another job. We're coming to the top of the hour, City. Today's proverb.
Today's
From the
proverb
Vamba people of
is
Vovombo.
yes.
It's from?
The Igbo have really very many proverbs. So I've tried to, there are very many proverbs that people keep quoting. Okay?
That's the Igbo.
But it's not as though, yes. He that beats the drum for the madman to dance is no better than the madman himself.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. We'll take that. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
absolutely beautifully this morning. Not much of an issue. As the sun rises, we're going to see the traffic rising as well. It's not so bad though, but we're likely to see that this is going to increase as we get well into traffic hour. Juja Road is flowing very smoothly as well. Not much of an issue there. Outer Ring, Kariobangi, you guys are not going to have a bad time either. Komarok, okay, is flowing very smoothly as well. Not too much of an issue. Coming off from Kitengela onto Mombasa Road, you're going to get where you're going in good time. It's going to start to heat up right around Cabanas and then getting towards the JKIA turnoff until you get to roundabout General Motors. So it's not too terrible. We'll see that it'll probably pick up in a bit. If you get stuck somewhere, do let us know. The service lanes are open on Thika Road. You can use those trying to get out right now as it takes you to the Pangani underpass. You wouldn't have too much of an issue there. Getting in and out of the CBD will not be too painful at this hour. It's going to change, so you're going to have to exercise some patience later, but we'll let you know when. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. If you do run into something that others should know about, do be so kind as to share, and then we'll share.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko,
7:02. Good morning, and thank you
Nigerian
very much for
Kenyan
tuning
by
in to
choice,
this situation
communications
right here
expert.
on Spice FM. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We are broadcasting on 94.4 Nairobi. We are in Mombasa 87.9, in Kisumu 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret 96.7, 90.9 in Nyeri, Malindi 97.7, www.spicefm.co.ke. Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. To join this conversation, you can call in on 0719-012-600, or you can post your question or comment on our social media handles, as I've said them, Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter and Instagram. So, I was going to tell you the story of the man who was killed by police officers in Mathare the other day, okay? So, where is it? It was right here. I was looking at it.
on page 18.
Yes, page 18 of the Standard. Homeless man shot by police was a college tutor. So the family of this man, who was known by locals in Mathare as Vaite, right? He was known by the locals as a cart puller, and he used to sleep right on the streets, okay? This 51-year-old man, his real name is James Mureithi. He's been described as a dedicated husband and father to 3 children. His kin say he was actually a well-educated man. He came from Meru County. He studied primary and secondary there. He went to the National Youth Service in the 1990. He acquired a diploma in automotive engineering. He worked as an instructor at Kenyanjui Technical Training College and then as a workshop foreman at Optic Limited. And then in 1999, he came to Umoja Mechanical Engineering in Nairobi as a co-director and worked there for 3 years before he quit to try his hand in business. Mm-hmm. He went into business. Business, unfortunately, did not go so well. It was a Mutumba business. His fortunes started dwindling. When his business went under, he started doing manual jobs like carrying luggage to send money back home to his wife so that she could take care of the children. This was Mr. Mureithe's life. It became so difficult that he disappeared into a faceless slum dweller in Mathare, doing odd jobs to eke out a living, and he mostly kept to himself. Many just knew him as Vaite, which is Kemeru for you guy. So he was not, he's a man who had actually come from somewhere. He was a co-director in a company. He actually even was a teacher, as a college tutor.
This guy probably underwent depression.
He went through serious depression at some point in his life, and it's because of what the cards that life had dealt him.
Yes. Because when everything that I'm reading is the man was willing to accept anything other than what he had actually been trained to do and the life he had lived.
Yeah.
It's like the man it's like he rejected himself.
Yeah.
Became a cat puller. He didn't need to. If you're trained and you've done some work, it means you can actually try and go back to it. Maybe he had tried and something went wrong, but
Yep.
these are the actions of someone who's given up, and usually those are signs of somebody who's actually depressed.
So when his business, so he was running a mechanical engineering company in Nairobi. He was a co-director. Then he decided, all right, so maybe I want to try my hand in business. Someone had told him, or he looked and he thought the Mtumba business is a lucrative business. Go into Mtumba business, things went south. He could not come back into mechanical engineering for whatever reason, or maybe he had tried and it did not work out. And like City is saying, he just got into that point where he just, from that point on, tanked. Tanked.
I mean, think about
He
it.
became a mkokoteni pusher.
Somebody with that mechanical engineering training, you tell me, for all you know, he could easily have gone to the Juakali sector
Yep.
where people do that sort of work. He didn't. So you put it well. There are certain cards that life dealt him that somehow
And he was doing all these things, trying to still take care of his family.
There you go. That's the thing. Because at the end of the day, I was just going through all of this, and the end goal seems to have been that you can always then be able to bring something home. And unfortunately, we see that then, inaccessibility to funds then leads to the potential emasculation of a man.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate thing. And we still see that quite a lot of African men see depression as a white man's disease. Truth be told, that depression is not going to be something I'm going to come and tell people that I'm suffering from.
Some Zungu problem.
No.
But usually you don't even know you're suffering from depression.
Exactly. You don't
That
even
is
know.
the problem with
And if
depression.
you are
don't know.
diagnosed,
You don't know.
and then
No.
if you are diagnosed and someone comes and tells you that your problem is depression, the truth be told, for an African man, the first action would be deniability. They would say, no. Let's talk about something else. Life has been hard. I've lost income. That's what I'm suffering from. But depression, no, because then it shows off an element of, unfortunately, weakness.
Father weakness.
Weakness, right?
More so, it's even more stigmatizing in that it's mental weakness, not just weakness.
Not just
Yeah.
weakness
Yes.
physically, yeah.
And you know how we treat any mental condition on this continent.
Yeah.
It's shunned.
We call you a madman.
Yeah.
There's hardly any stigma that can go to the lengths that can go.
I spoke to a gentleman yesterday, and he used to deal heavily in imports. And interestingly, imports in toys for children. And then with COVID, all of that basically went to the dogs. And he said something that struck me. And he said, you know what? So long as I get something to take home every day, I cannot imagine going home to my wife and children with nothing.
Empty-handed.
Even if it is 100 shillings, I must take something home. I don't know how I'm going to go and tell them that today
I have nothing.
I have nothing for you to eat. And it struck me in a way that's nothing else has struck me in a while. That's the thing. So when you said that, Eric, I realized that's the thing. I must be able to take food home every day.
That one could argue even is a throwback of what typified an African man. There's an entire generation of African men who are quite happy to be looked after.
Oh, yeah.
Quite happy.
Yeah.
This bring home.
Bring it. I'm here.
Yes, let somebody bring it, they will happily receive it. Yes. But again, it's not just African, if you think about it. If you look at even Western cultures,
It's a global.
It's true. It is.
It's worldwide.
Yeah.
yes, it's something that is expected of individuals who are male.
Yeah.
You're
expected to.
Your
Your
role
To look after.
You're the provider and the protector.
Yes, you are.
Provider and protector. So if any of those two you're not able to do, even from
Hey.
the simple point of thugs have entered your home
And you can't protect.
and you cannot protect your family,
Yeah.
you already feel emasculated. You're already feeling what exactly is this? What happened? How did this happen? How did they come into my house? How did they rough up my wife and children? This is bad. If you look at what the children are saying, he had children. Edwin Getuma is 20. He had a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old. They said that their father was a caring parent who was passionate about education. Whenever the father called, He told them, he'd ask them how they were doing in school. He'd then ask if they had any problems and how he could help. These people, I doubt they knew that their father was actually sleeping on the street in Madare slum. But he'd call home and he'd, are you going to school? How are you doing in school? Anything that you need? Okay.
I'm trying to think of the mental journey that this person went through to the point where they got there. But let's focus a little bit on the police shooting him. What brought this about?
Well, police are enforcing a curfew at 9 at night.
And you shoot people.
And then they, open fire.
That one? That one strikes me as being odd. I thought we had gotten to the point where they just stop you and beat you. Right. And probably occasionally take you to the police station.
They open fire.
Shooting.
Those things that we just see police officers running and then you hear a sound. They don't care where the gun is pointing. Or somebody has not even thought really
I'd really like to
where
understand
the gun is pointing. And you see this all the time. Even when the police are maybe arresting somebody who has been given justice by the mob. Right? They come, they get that person, and they're trying to...
they shoot in the air.
They shoot in the air. Sometimes it's not necessarily the air directly upwards. It is somewhere just...
It's anywhere.
It's anywhere.
Yes, and then it finds...
You don't know whether it's going to a balcony somewhere, finding somebody. You don't know how it's going.
Why I'm asking this is because do we know of, has it been mentioned that there was perhaps a report of some crime? Has it been mentioned? The curfew we've gotten. But to shoot someone dead, I'm trying to give the police a little benefit of doubt here, right? Had there been a report of some robbery so that this is a
on this particular day?
Yes, or this is a case, of mistaken identity, and they were told in that area something had happened, someone was seen running away from the scene. Was there something of this sort?
We haven't seen any kind
nothing
of
that sort. No. Because I'm trying to imagine someone who is walking, Mkokoteni pusher, someone who is dressed like someone who clearly is poor, and someone who is known
homeless.
And someone who is known to sleep on the street. Okay, if he sleeps on the street, he will be breaking curfew anyway.
Yep.
And if there's a policeman who work this particular beat,
they should know him, because the locals know this person. Everybody knows Vaite.
him.
Everybody knows Vaite. So if you're a local police officer, you definitely also know all the people, the street people in that area. You know them.
This shooting of this
and
fellow,
just looking at people, you can tell this is a street person and this is not a street person. It's a very unfortunate story. It's a very sad story also looking at the background now of getting to understand the story of Vaite.
And then the story of many more
and
who
many,
would not have been reported
many
like
people
this.
who were on the streets, right? And this could be their story.
This thing really has to be settled. Because, the stories of people being shot, the people being beaten, the people being mistreated. Like this lady who was dragged. No, something is drastically wrong.
Something is going south somewhere.
Completely. No, it went south. We're just seeing the manifestations.
We're just seeing
of
it, huh?
Yes.
I often wonder, because I look at the case of this woman, for example, when we talk about police brutality and such, and then I often wonder now, the policeman, when this was happening, and just like you spoke about just now, Eric, when you're shooting in the air, are you thinking about the end of this? How is this going to end?
You're exercising your power. You're feeling so powerful
at that point,
that
you're feeling that there is no... I am beyond reproach.
You're invisible.
At this point, I can do whatever it is that I want to do.
How do people get there?
Yeah, that's where I'm going with this. How do you get to the point whereby you feel as if your actions will not have any consequences and that you can mete out on anybody anything that you wish, regardless of whether that person is suffering, number one, regardless of whether whether what you're doing is against the law, or even against humanity. And all of that goes out the window, and you still choose. He actually thought, riding this motorcycle, dragging another human being on the road, that what he was going to do was punish her. And that was it.
Do you know what the report was at the police station? That this lady had suffered the attack from a mob.
It was mob justice.
And it wasn't in this case.
That's what
it
was
clear.
Recorded.
This is what was recorded. So then you go beyond this act, this heinous act, to then lie and to then malign her character, or even the character of a crowd who was really not involved in this process even further to do what? Protect yourself as an individual. There's something very, very, very wrong. There's something wrong.
System problem. It is a system problem. Just the same way we are seeing in America. The same thing applies here. We talk about
does.
the reason we've been talking about police reforms for so long is because it's a system problem. And when we spoke with the CEO of IMLU, Kiama, he was telling us this police reforms appears to be happening to a certain degree, but you don't get to the core of the system.
You know what?
You actually don't deal with the structure itself.
And when we ask ourselves, is what we see then indicative of the fact that many more of these things are actually happening?
Yep.
Because now you have, if you want to now take the same thing that we see here that is reported in our papers and look at what is happening in the United States, for example, more and more citizens are telling you that actually, you know what? We see this all the time. But we've never had an opportunity to report it. And so now all of this is
you're afraid
to report it.
You're afraid, yes.
Just look at now, since the death of George Floyd, how many more cases have now come out into the open of what has been happening as concerns police brutality. And interestingly enough, not just police brutality against African Americans, but across board. So now people suddenly have some kind of gumption to say, look, this is actually what is going on.
You know, the police who are associated with perpetrating some of these things, no.
Yeah.
They're resigning.
Yes,
They're quitting.
They are. They're
quitting. In
Because they
Kenya,
don't
it
wanna
hasn't
face
happened. In Kenya, we've had deliberate attempts at reforming the police service, even removing, changing it from force to service, going through an entire process of vetting all police officers. Nothing has changed. When we talk about now these police officers, well, having IPOA and IPOA, expecting that IPOA is an independent policing oversight authority, and then seeing that it lacks the independence in terms of managing its own finances, so it's not well equipped and well resourced to do its work, IPOA will continue complaining that, you know what, our hands, we can only reach this far. We don't have the capacity and ability to go beyond this because of our resources and our resourcing. When you see police officers doing this, and I liked what Kiama was telling us when you spoke to him, he said, let's move this action against police officers from just the police officer, but say police officer plus superior. So if it's a certain police station, the police officer plus the boss of that police station, because the boss of the police station is supposed to be ensuring that the officers there are disciplined and they're doing their job
And
the
the
right
action
way.
should not be a transfer.
Yeah. Should not be to move them from here, take them to another county. Absolutely not. It should be direct action. This is a situation on Miss Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at weather. And the conversation continues. Remember, you can join this conversation on 0719-012-600 or on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, where we're live streaming. You're also live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke.
All right, the sun seems to be peeking out from behind the clouds in Nairobi at 14 degrees. Mostly cloudy conditions will continue for most parts of the day. We're likely to see a wet evening into a wet weekend, then with highs of 23 and lows of 13. It's partly cloudy in Nyeri at 14 degrees. Thunderstorms will be forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 22. Nakuru is partly cloudy at 13. We will see highs of 23 and lows of 13. And it's forecasted a wet weekend in the Rift as well. Eldoret at 12 degrees is partly cloudy, highs of 19 and lows of 12 with intermittent thunderstorms throughout the weekend. 19 degrees and partly cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 26 and lows of 18, and rain is predicted for the afternoon. Kakamega at 16 degrees is partly cloudy, but it'll be a wet afternoon going into an extremely wet weekend with highs of 23 and lows of 14. 24 degrees and partly cloudy in Mombasa, highs of 29 and lows of 24. And in Malindi at 26 degrees is partly cloudy, highs of 29. We'll take a quick peek into East Africa at 18 degrees. Kampala is mostly cloudy. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 18 with showers expected for the early parts of the afternoon. And in Dar es Salaam at 22 degrees, it's clear skies this morning and highs of highs of 30. Johannesburg is really frigid today, still at 0 degrees. We'll see highs of 9 and lows of -2 today, but for some reason the sun will still shine. And finally, for now in Lagos at 26 degrees, it's clear skies with periodic clouds. It'll be rain showers in the afternoon with highs of 28 and lows of 23.
24/7, this is the situation. Bigger conversation. What
Spice up your life.
Interesting things do you see in the news?
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
COVID-19. And then now we had 11 by 11.
But I don't know.
Then we're talking about
Mornings
tell us about the health
done
workers.
right.
They're going back on strike.
94.4 Spice FM,
Cumulatively,
Nairobi.
how many hours have health workers worked in Kisumu County in the last 2
Cumulatively,
years?
what is the problem that never really seems to go away? Because the striking is as a result of something that is going on.
yes.
And this something never seems to go away.
Cannot get a resolution.
And if it's not something, it is some things, because it's either this or it's that or it's the other. And usually at the heart of this thing is you'll find pay. Cumulatively, you use the word cumulatively. Cumulatively, they haven't been paid for God knows how long. Cumulatively.
They have been
The-
have been on strike for how long?
Yes, and cumulatively they are fed up, okay? Because it's very rare for a health worker to actually neglect looking after patients. It's rare. It's and it's difficult.
To see somebody suffering or somebody
It's
who should
very
be
difficult.
administered care, it's hard for them to
When
decide.
you see them taking those steps, believe me, they've realized we don't have an option here. These guys are not going to get it. They will not understand what it is that we want until we actually stop. So long as we're working, they'll think things are okay.
Now the governor has told them, you guys come back to work or we fire you.
The government is not telling them something they haven't been told before.
He's told them the same thing before. It's the same governor who's promised them many things before. If you want to talk about cumulative, there have been cumulative promises from the same governor about how he's going to sort out this issue. And it has not happened.
Remember, he even gave himself the portfolio of being the CS for that particular department.
Yeah.
Did we see any change? The answer is no.
Now see is a CEC.
Whatever, yes, see.
In a press statement released yesterday, the governor, Peter Nyang'nyong'o, told all the healthcare workers to report back to work today. La sivyo, it will be presumed that they have absconded duty. Any health worker who will not have reported to their stations will be removed from the payroll with immediate effect. It's clear that this strike is frivolous, unjustified, and is meant to defeat the ends of justice and to unreasonably subject innocent citizens to unwarranted suffering.
It sounds nice.
Have you ever come across a situation where health workers and other people who have gone on strike and the boss have said this strike is justified and we support it, now let's come and find a solution? It's always unjustified in their eyes.
Here is what he's saying. He's saying that in an earlier arbitration meeting, the parties had agreed that the 1,007 healthcare workers had been promoted and other issues of redesignations, salary delays, and COVID-19 allowances had been resolved. But Maurice Opetu, the Kenya National Union of Nurses secretary, said the governor had not reached out to them and their strike continues. So there was an arbitration in which they were absent.
Is it possible? So then it was not arbitration.
They must have been there. They must have
That's
sat
what
in
I'm
this
saying.
meeting. So what exactly
if
is
one
happening?
party was absent, then it was not an arbitration.
They must have been in that meeting.
You know, they may very well have been in that meeting, but the they now is what we need to define who.
Who's they?
Yes, who is they? Were they genuinely representative of this body of health workers? You know, these complaints, I am going to, if you'll allow me, I used to wonder before I got to university why people go on strike for something like food. I really used to wonder.
What's wrong with this?
I couldn't understand food. Then I couldn't understand why it is, because there are people who were very particular. Why have we received one egg? And I'm thinking, but see, one egg is enough.
Yeah.
No, we're supposed to receive 2.
That you get an egg even.
Then I did the maths. Not because I was clever. Somebody did the maths for me and told me, look, Moga, you don't seem to understand this thing. Okay?
Let me show you.
We are 2,000. So every morning, we're supposed to receive 4,000 eggs. Now, we're only receiving 2. So where are the other 2,000 eggs going? I said, okay.
Someone is eating your eggs.
Somebody's literally eating your eggs.
When you talk about 2,000 eggs, and they do this for 3 days in a week, that's 6,000 eggs. You suddenly realize, actually, wait, there is a problem here.
Somebody's playing business with our lives.
There's a problem here. Now, we may think that what the health workers are striking for are frivolous. It isn't frivolous to them.
This is it. To their reality, it is actually something that they can't do without. And should you put yourself in their shoes, you would realize that actually how they're able to create an existence with that which you give them is nothing short of miraculous.
It is.
If you were given that same opportunity, the likelihood of you being able to make a life out of that is very, very low. So in this case, I'm not even going to say, look, at some point, to take the hard stance that the governor has taken, whereby if you don't show up to work today, you don't have a job.
He always takes that hard stance.
Wrong position as usual.
You know, yes.
Yeah, as usual. Wrong position.
Does it speak to the character of the man?
Yes, it does. In this
It
case.
speaks
Because when you look at since Nyong'o became governor of Kisumu, healthcare has been affected since he became governor.
Let's just
He
say
has
that
not had a
healthcare has
smooth
gone to the
relationship.
dogs.
He has not had a smooth relationship with healthcare workers in
At
that
all.
county from the very beginning. Same thing we have seen with Kirinyaga. Same thing. Kirinyaga, the governor, is reported to have fired all, or at least very many healthcare workers.
And how did that help?
Same thing we are seeing here. Now
I
he's saying,
wouldn't say-
don't come back to work today, you're fired.
You could point the character of the person. I would perhaps look at the managerial capacity of the person. Because managerial capacity also encompasses managing situations.
And processes.
Yes, and this is a situation that keeps recurring. So you wonder, why does it keep recurring?
Yep.
You have a budget. You know the amount of money that you should actually pay these workers. Even when counties have said there's no money, the one thing that the national government has said, there's money to pay salaries.
Yep.
So why have these people not been paid? It's not. Is that a difficult question?
This one is not difficult at all.
No.
There was money. There are people who require this money in terms of payment. At the end of it, they've not been paid. So you ask yourself the question, why? It's not difficult.
Ni nini mbaya?
Yeah.
And if it happened once, you can say, this what happened, this what happened. This isn't the number of times the health workers have gone on strike in Kisumu are really more than you can actually even count.
That's what I was saying, cumulatively. If you actually just looked at 0 to 100%, 60% of the time or more, they have not been working.
No, they haven't. No, they haven't.
And now we're talking in this day of COVID-19. And the governor was in Nairobi meeting with the president the day before yesterday.
If you consider
right?
other
Discussing
counties,
how we are fighting COVID-19. And he's sitting there as governor, the chief executive, and the CEC for health. Because he is the CEC for health now.
Eric, you see other counties have had problems with the health workers, yes. But then the problem disappears. You don't hear of strikes again, do you?
No.
So it means it was addressed.
Yeah.
Laikipia the other day, Laikipia County,
Yep.
health workers were going on strike. At some point, the governor of Laikipia even vacated some of those positions. Why? Because they didn't have the necessary budgetary allocation to pay them. But that all was sorted out then when the county received certain funds that were supposed to go towards, number one, pending bills, and then number two, payment of some salaries. We've never heard that story again.
It was resolved.
It was resolved. The same question was asked and the solution was given. These people were supposed to have been paid. They've not been paid. Why? The governor came out very clearly and gave the reasons as to why. And I did not hide anything. We were supposed to have received this allocation. We have not received the allocation.
Yeah.
But we know that we're following up on it. And when it comes
we
will pay.
We'll pay.
Guess what? The money came through.
They
He
paid.
paid. People carried on with their work. It was made public and we moved
Everybody
on.
was happy.
Why then? We
Machakos
have-
County had issues with the healthcare workers at the very beginning of Governor Mutua's term in 2013. Sat down with them, and he now keeps going and saying, me and my healthcare workers, we are buddies. He makes sure that those people, there's no issue that they raise that he doesn't address. Anybody else, healthcare workers, right? The neighboring county, Makueni, healthcare
Doesn't
workers,
even pop up.
they're fine. In fact, even Dr. Masi Korir was telling us healthcare workers in Makueni County prefer to go to their health facilities in Makueni County. They're all sorted. They're
The
taken care
officials
of.
also prefer to go there. And
Yes.
notably, their governor is reported to actually
Also
seek his health care
In their hospitals, in
Yes.
those facilities.
And they are covered, and they know that if I fall sick, me and my family will access services here. And it's also been covered in our... Now we're talking about Kisumu. Kisumu not having a functional health system. And it's one of the 4 pilots for universal health coverage.
One of the things that has made the provision of health services in Kisumu appear like it's stable and it's working well, it's because there are very many support organizations that deal with healthcare that are stationed in that city. They are funded, some through PEPFAR, some through other organizations that look into various diseases that you could speak of, but they are in Kisumu. So they support the healthcare system that already exists there.
Kumbe, this is where the problem is.
No, this is where some issues may arise.
Yes.
It's not the issue, but
one of the issues, and
yes.
one of the big issues could be this. There's money. Whenever you hear there's money somewhere,
Just look for problems.
money floating around, there's going to be problems. And the problems will be on who's controlling this money, how is the money being dished out.
you know, there are even organizations who have been working within Kisumu County and some of the other counties within the former Nyanza, who actually, as part of their contribution to the healthcare situation, would employ people on behalf of the county and pay them on behalf of the county. And when they say health workers, it's not just clinical officers or nurses, whether it is lab, the entire fraternity,
spectrum.
yes, of healthcare workers. So, this is something that has existed for some time. Now, with the reduction of funding in some of these areas, there may have been a bit of a pinch.
There's friction somewhere.
There is a pinch. But those who are directly paid by the county have had issues, and these issues have simply refused to go away. Why? Because the problems that they've complained about have not been resolved conclusively.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could they also just be comparing themselves with their colleagues who are not being paid directly by the county?
It isn't that. It is very simple. They haven't been paid. This is not complicated.
No, and I don't think anybody's being, dodgy here. They've not received the money that is owed to them.
Due. Remember, let's talk about strikes and even just throw this to the University of Nairobi. What they were complaining about was very clear. There's money that was promised to us. It was agreed upon that this money should be paid to us. And this is university staff, not lecturers, staff, members of staff. And this money hasn't been paid. We've talked about it. We've given time. We've accepted that they can, everything, any quarter that could have been given has been given.
Yeah.
We still haven't been paid. So now, it looks like the only language you people understand is if we down our tools.
Yeah,
And that's what we're going to do.
Yes.
that's what's going to send the message home.
Because usually it isn't as though these people going on strike are unreasonable. No. They're actually not unreasonable. They are given timelines. People agree on these timelines. And these timelines are not honored.
That's where the problem lies.
Yes. And then they hear that the national government has released money for some of these things. So they ask,
So where's the money?
where's our money?
Yeah. 27 minutes to 8. Let's take a look at traffic. The conversation continues. 0719 012 600. That's our number. Good morning.
All right, things seem to have gone crazy on Mombasa Road, not moving at all. Inbound towards General Motors, nothing is moving. It's a sandwich, guys. So here you're going to have to exercise patience. Everybody's moving around this Friday morning and Mombasa Road. We knew this was going to happen, and voila, it has. Thika Road also, jam has started from heaven, is what we're being told, all the way from the Safari Park Hotel. If you get to the Utali Drift before 8 o'clock, you will be in good stead, but that's unlikely to happen. The Muthaiga Square, we have a problem there now, trying to join the main highway. Coming in from Kiambu Road as well, as you try to attempt to get to the Pangani underpass. So there is a mess there. Patience is an ingredient you're going to have to add to this mess. All right, so around other parts of the city, not much of an issue. We're looking into Mombasa now, where it seems to be giving the all clear. Getting into town, Kisumu City as well. Within the city, not much of an issue there, so traffic is not behaving badly this Friday morning. Everywhere else, we see where the problems are. The eastern and southern bypasses are moving along quite well for now. We'll give you more information as we go along. Let us know what you see. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Talk to us there.
up your life.
Yes.
You know, all these
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
and the details of the budget, they're all good and well. If only we could be assured.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Well
So
and
it's
good.
well and good, yes. I have deliberately twisted it.
Okay.
Yes.
At least knows you're paying attention.
Yes. The point is, if there was some assurance and some certainty that these things would be actually implemented. You
Yeah.
see, it's our problem.
Yeah.
It's not the budgeting. If these things could be implemented, then a lot of the problems that we are facing wouldn't be what they are. And we'd have a far more robust economy, which has a lot more money. In short, very many things would be different. If only. If only.
If only.
If only.
That's where the deal is. If only.
If only.
Our problem with this country of ours and this government of ours, not just this one, just the term government and Kenya, is that bit. The implementation of things that they're supposed to do, what they say that they're supposed to. Excuse me. What they say that they're supposed to do. On paper, it comes up very
Looks
well.
great.
That, this is going to happen, and then in the end, it doesn't end up happening at all. And you wonder, okay, so what went wrong? I mean, what is it that you missed? What is it that you're supposed to have done that you missed?
Yes, and what are we rectifying? This particular government came up with some very heavy duty youth programs. Where did they go to? What did we achieve?
Youth program.
With the plural.
Many.
Many.
If we look at the funds, there's the youth fund, there's the Uwezo fund, right? Now, the government is working in collaboration with financial institutions. There's one that's been rolled out for SMEs. Of course, the bigger target here is, again, the youth. There's the women fund. And a bigger population of our country being youthful, you also expect that youthful women are the ones who are supposed to benefit from this. There's the revamping of the National Youth Service, which, obviously, as the name suggests, is for the youth. All these programs, Kazi kwa Vijana, now we have Kazi Mtaani, money that's supposed to be going towards addressing the plight of the youth.
Tough stuff.
On paper, by the way, we are very good.
No. It's not tough.
And there's some, there's some pockets here and there where you can see success. You can see success. You can see, yes, even that youth fund, by the way, if we were to audit it, you will find a percentage of success. Some success stories where people accessed the money from the youth fund, they went and injected that capital into their business, and their business thrived. Their businesses thrived. They were able even to repay the youth fund, and they were able to expand their businesses. You will find cases here and there, pockets of good stories here and there. The larger picture, however, of now people looking at this youth fund and using the youth fund to say that this is how the government has been dealing with our youth, and we can see clearly that when they set aside money for the youth fund to help youth get into business, it has worked, and this is how it worked. The bigger picture, we all remember the scandals. CEO of the youth fund, chairman of the youth fund, I don't know what money
Eric,
has been spent.
if the bulk of the information we got regarding that fund was positive, the bulk, it's what would predominate the discussions around it.
Yeah.
But when any good that you can point in that direction is scarce, then what is in abundance is what wasn't done. Then that is what will occupy our minds.
Well, it's true. The way we say that development begets development, the same thing about negative information or negative stories also beget other negative stories. And so you just think that this thing that could potentially do so well, that could potentially benefit people, you can imagine a young man, a young woman being able to get some capital injection on a business of theirs, start a business, be able to support themselves and their family, right? You pay off that loan, go back and be able to get more to do something better. Wouldn't it be a great story if this is something that would reverberate through the entire nation?
Yep.
But unfortunately, what we hear is rock scandal after scandal.
One after the other.
scandal.
This-
So as far as you're concerned, that entire fund is a scam. So nobody's going to go near it.
Anything good, my friend, is simply shunted aside completely.
Yeah, and that's quite the unfortunate thing.
It is the unfortunate thing, but that's what predominates the things that we do in this country. A scheme comes up, a program comes up, the first thing we ask is, okay, another one. And that another one doesn't mean another good thing.
Who's behind this one and what are they benefiting?
Another scheme for people to rip off.
Yes. Another one.
Here we had this beautiful, 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 beautiful program called Evolution. Beautiful. Let the common man benefit. Let this money be taken to them where they live so that they can benefit. And then what do? A replication of what has been happening at the national level is replicated now in the county. So here you are, your people, your own people, whom you elected, who have been given this money to look after your interest, doing the very thing that some of them were shouting and saying, no, this is what should be corrected. You look and you ask yourself, this situation that we have in this country. Remember, sometimes back you asked, because this weekend, I said, this one you pray for. This one. You pray.
Inataka maombi.
Inahitaji maombi. Tena maombi kali.
Yeah.
Ile maombi
fasting.
na kufunga.
Telling you.
Because in all sincerity, even these people who lend us money would not lend us money if we didn't have a track record of being able to pay.
Yeah.
And the reason why we're able to pay is because our government is taking the living daylights out of us. Okay, they're taxing it day and night, and then taxing us some more. But you're taxing because there seems to be money that we have which can go in that direction. If only, again, we are back to if only. If only it did what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. If only.
If only. It wouldn't be a burden.
It's a very unfortunate thing when you get to that point where you're wondering, all right, so
What happens now?
So now, and of course, the government does not have, does not fall short of ideas for the next thing. They'll bring back a new thing and call it, and come up with a new initiative with a new name, and say this is what we're doing to address youth. Youth unemployment in this country remains one of the sticking points for our government, and this is what we're going to do. We are going to give money to support the creative industry. How much has it been? Is it 100 million?
Yes.
100 million to
Just
the
about.
creative industry. And this is how we're going to do. We're also supporting the Film Production Center, and the Kenya Film Commission is rolling out a program to encourage producers and creatives in the film sector to undergo training with some seed capital as well, some seed financing to start their businesses over and over and over again. Without just the same thing that we talk about, the big four. If you don't have a bigger picture with clear milestone, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to achieve over this period of time, and these are the milestones. Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, half 1, half 2, like that. So there is no way of checking how you're doing. Just like where we are now, we don't have an M&E, clear M&E, monitoring and evaluation of the big four. Where are we supposed to have been by now on housing? How many houses?
Where are we now?
Are we? So what's wrong? What's not working? What's working and what's not working?
Well, it's obvious that the attention that is required to be given to these projects has not been. I mean, somewhere along the line, it could have been the vision carrier sent it out there, right?
Yep.
Those then who were supposed to now make sure that it developed fruits along the way didn't. Just
By
like
the
you're
way,
saying now, reported, not happening.
Some housing actually have been erected. Do not assume that it's completely empty.
There's some housing.
In Ngara, they've put up something.
Oh, they have. But
And that Ngara
compared
project,
to-
again, there's the other Ngara project that now we are seeing experts in environment, like Nema, saying this is going to have an environmental problem. In that whole area of Ngara, Jivanji, the old Jivanji estate, and the other one, they have said the project that was supposed to come up here, no, going through problems. The one in Pangani is up and running, right?
Yes, it is.
There's the one that the president launched, the big one down in Athi River. Launched, I don't know.
Launched.
Groundbreaking supposed to happen.
Launched.
But you're supposed to be building 250,000 or so houses per year. Mahali tumefika.
Launched.
Yebeneza.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know, this is where we go back to the discussion we've been having for the longest time.
Yeah.
Leadership. Because if the whip is cracked and it is clear, and this one has to go to the top, the top means business. All this pussyfooting and this nonsense we keep seeing happening, it will stop.
It will stop. Things
It will
will
stop.
move.
There it will stop because the people know this one. Apes, as they say in contemporary Sheng, kimeumana.
In contemporary Sheng, I like that.
In contemporary Sheng.
Kimeumana. People know things are thick, and it is actually perilous to try and pull this funny stunts.
It's gonna hit the fan.
I mean, right now, even if you talk to people and ask what is happening with COVID and the moving, these restrictions of movement.
It's a joke.
Restrictions. Someone will ask you which restrictions.
Restriction.
Which one?
There's a restriction.
Okay, for doing what? What will restrict you is the money that is required for you to pay in order to sort of like abrogate or go beyond the restriction. That's it. But beyond that,
Mfuko yako tu ndio itakuzuia.
hiyo ndio italeta pingamizi. But otherwise, you can move and
Go
go,
to go.
You can move and you can go anywhere you want to go. Now, how good is that? And the problem isn't that what was required by the government is something that is draconian. No,
Yeah.
it's a safety measure that actually is useful to all of us.
Yeah.
But why the mindset? You know the vicious cycle. This feeds into this, this feeds into this, this feeds into
For
this,
sure.
this feeds into this. And over a period of time, it looks like we had a break in the Kibaki era. Where you felt, here, I
Maybe.
think,
Maybe things are going to work, eh?
No, but
Yeah.
the hope with which Kibaki was met, man, it was earth shaking. It was news making. It was something that had not been seen, to the point where we were being called. What were we being called?
The
Kenya.
most optimistic people on earth.
That's us.
On Earth, even.
Yes, it was Earth.
Yeah.
It was Earth, meaning planet.
Got it.
Even those guys at the ISS were also included.
Yes. Now, when you have a situation where that happens, it means that optimism was shattered.
Yeah.
So people figured, why bother?
Wachana nayo.
It is easier to just fork out money and you do it. These are the things. Watch it.
It's 14 minutes to 8 o'clock. Let's take a short break, and then the conversation.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the
On Kenya's biggest conversation, and we were talking about the optimism of Kenyans and how we look at ourselves, how we get to that point where people feel like they want to give up. But no, it's not that they give up on life. It's
No,
they give
not
up
on life.
expectations.
No.
It's just managing your expectations. I don't expect so much from the government. Well, I'll keep expecting that
Actually,
they'll
what
do something.
they do is
but
they become negative. And that isn't, it's a pity that our leaders don't seem to understand that God gifted them a wonderful people to lead. We don't kick too much of a fuss. We just disobey rules from time to time, not every day. Okay?
Yep.
We are willing to be led. We only go on strike when we really absolutely have to.
yeah,
If we can be guaranteed that we're going to eat, live, survive, and have security,
that's it.
you
The
can
rest
even-
we'll do for ourselves.
Believe me, yes, we'll figure out how to sort that out. But our leaders just seem determined to keep pushing us and pushing us and pushing us and pushing it. That seems to be their determination. And why? Because they want to add a shilling more to the shilling they already have.
It's all about private interest. I remember when we were speaking yesterday with the CEO of Institute for Public Finance, right? And he was telling us, look, in this budgeting whole process, one of the bigger problems that we have is the personal interest of the vendors that have infiltrated government, have infiltrated budgeting. So our budget is not created to look at the end product being benefiting the Monanchi. It looks at the end product being money coming to this particular vendor. And that's it. Talk about however you want to look at this budget. There's somebody who's already positioned themselves. So we are saying we're going to spend 600,000 shillings to support the local manufacturing industry, the local car assembly. It's already clear, the pipeline, where this money is going. We need money to, support the local manufacturing so the government can buy local vehicles.
We want to ensure that we want to limit the road carnage, so we are going to ensure that every vehicle that runs or moves on the roads of Kenya has a
speed governor. And there's somebody who's already
been aligned to set up, or their business has already been set up to facilitate for such provision.
What do you mean? The speed governors are in Kenya?
Well, they've already arrived. The law comes after the material has been delivered.
Then they can say we are implementing this thing
in 2 weeks.
With immediate effect.
2 weeks' time.
With immediate effect,
because it is here.
Yes. It's in 2 weeks' time, and this is what's going to happen. And the government is going to tell you which speed governors are allowed.
Remember, that speed governor arrived 2 weeks prior.
It's already here. And you already know which one exactly it is. And this is how we operate, basically, from the very beginning. But then, if you look at the private sector and you see a lot of hope, right? You see the way private sector companies are run, and you wonder, so if a company can come from scratch
in Kenya,
to being like the largest company in East Africa.
In Kenya.
A company like Safaricom, the largest company in East Africa, within a short span of time, comparatively, right? You ask yourself, so what is it? Kenyans get into this, they buy their mobile phones, they buy airtime, they use this company's products, and they feel, well, yeah, I like it. Because this company already thinks of how to integrate itself into your life.
Continuously.
To help you in your life, and in the process, make money. It's not the other way around. I'm coming to rip you. I'm looking at how much do you have anyway?
Or what?
I'm going to get that money through hook or crook and then give you hopeless service. No.
Or asking the question, what need is there that is present in society?
Yes.
And then how can that need be met, essentially?
Yep.
And if this need can be met seamlessly, people are going to pick up on it. And that's what you have then that makes the whole difference.
Yep. And it's just addressing those needs. Look at the market. Look at this is what people are thinking about. This is what people are actually, aspiring to do. And you just come and plug yourself into it. And all along, like we've said this before, and actually, just as we're speaking like that, the Safaricom CEO happens to have been around the building. And he pops in.
Fortuitously.
He was just on a stroll down Mombasa Road. He decided to get into Standard Group Center. And then now he finds himself in
the Situation Room.
The Situation Room.
And we find ourselves welcoming him.
Mr. Peter Ndegwa. Karibu sana. Welcome to the Situation Room. And thank you very much for joining us and coming to speak to us. And we really appreciate you popping in and popping by. It's been a couple of months now since you took over.
2 months. I'm in my third month now.
You took over on April Fool's Day.
April 1st.
And so how real, I guess the question then would be, how real has the experience
been? You still have
been?
that job.
First of all, I'm real.
We can see you, so we can verify that you actually exist and you're real. Thank you.
Yeah, but I have to say, I didn't imagine that I would be going through onboarding remotely. Especially when you're joining a new organization. I like being, of course, close to people.
Yeah.
But it's been a great time. Safaricom has been involved in supporting the country through this COVID period. So that's for me what I've really loved. Our business is open, has been open since COVID hit, and will continue to be open, including our shops. So we haven't closed.
In fact, when we talk about all the other businesses that are doing well, we start with Safaricom is doing well, and then other businesses are also doing well during COVID. But also, yes, we
are supporting the country.
Safaricom is supporting the country during this period.
And other businesses.
And other businesses
It would
are doing
appear
well.
that it would appear that everything that seemed to go wrong during COVID,
Yeah.
that Safaricom was able to, these holes that we've been talking about, the gaps that been able to fill, Safaricom has been able to fill those gaps. Would you say that that's the situation from your point of view?
Well, I think what I see it as more using technology to support a country in need and to support our customers. So whether that is on fiber, whether that's M-Pesa, driving less cashless or less cash or driving cashless. But we have also seen M-Pesa is what I would call the barometer of what's happening in the economy. When you look at Lipa and M-Pesa, you can see the small businesses are suffering.
Yeah.
You can see.
You can already see a reduction.
Yes,
in
you can already see a reduction. So although there is more, less cash being used, the level of economic activity, people can only transfer money that they have, and that's one of the reasons why we said that we are going to give free transactions below 1,000. Free, and we've seen 20 million customers use it during this COVID period. Of course, we are also working with government to transfer money to the vulnerable for free, again during this COVID period. So, so although yes, M-Pesa has been used more, the level of activity, economic activity is lower.
And even the small businesses that usually borrow on a daily basis through your M-Pesa platforms, that has also reduced.
Has been stable. You know, you'd expect that loans during this period would spike as people actually come under pressure.
Okay.
But has generally been stable. But remember, our loans are very small loans. They are top-up loans. So they are actually very essential during this period. But what we have also seen is Kenyans like saving. So because of the uncertainty, they don't know what will happen. So we've seen actually withdrawals reduce. You know, you'd expect
from M-Shwari.
Yeah, no, from M-Pesa.
From M-Pesa itself.
Yeah. So in the float itself,
so people are keeping cash.
Yeah, people are keeping cash
M-Pesa
because they
wallets.
don't know whether they will earn the next month's whatever, and therefore, by keeping cash, they can keep cash to buy food and rent and so on.
Mr. Ndegwa, what has Safaricom done to ensure that they shield their workers from this, the ramifications of COVID?
So the first thing we did, of course, was to make sure that we could get most of our employees to work from home. 75% of our employees are enabled to work from home with all the infrastructure that they need. But our shops have been open. And also because we have engineers who actually go in to install and fix issues. They are also open. So what we have done is to make sure that we follow all the health protocols, make sure the social distancing, gloves, and so on and so forth. So our employees are protected. And also we've supported our employees financially to make sure they are protected during this period. And the support also goes to dealers and agents.
You mentioned that you've supported through your platforms some of the government initiatives to help the vulnerable. Do you have those figures?
No, I don't. I wouldn't speak about the figures because because I don't have them at this stage. But what I can say is that previously people would be supported through physical delivery of food.
Yeah.
But now what we are doing is to make sure that the money goes directly to the person who will benefit. And there is no cost that is associated with delivery.
Is it in tandem with we call it the Harambee Committee that the government set up?
It is a combination of previously people who are designated as vulnerable, but also the new vulnerable. Remember that there are people who have lost jobs. And also, as you know, the COVID board has been set up, which even private sector, including ourselves, have contributed. So that money, again, will go through M-Pesa for free to the people who need food and other essentials.
Right. Peter, you're the first Kenyan at the helm. You're the first Kenyan in this big seat for this big company. There are a lot of expectations, even for people who work under you and also for Kenyans at large. The most, successful company in East Africa and such.
Yes.
What should people be able to expect?
Yes, I am, of course, the first Kenyan, and I salute the two CEOs, former CEOs, Michael Joseph and the late Bob, for steering this organization to be the largest. But we should never forget that Safaricom has been successful because Kenya has supported Safaricom. So my primary objective is actually to make sure that Kenyans, I look after the interests of Kenyans. So M-Pesa has been very successful. We are looking at what is the next M-Pesa. What should we do in education, in health, in agriculture? We have units like DG Farm, which we've set up to support small farmers, or MTBA. How can we scale those so that in 5 years they could be your next M-Pesa? So we are looking for those breakthrough areas that can impact a big part of the population. So at a personal level, I've worked in big organizations and I've run big businesses in Kenya, in West Africa, in Europe. So I know how to run a business. But I think for me, the special thing about Safaricom is that we need to, our DNA is about serving Kenyans and making sure that we connect through purpose, connect what we do. Our commercial objectives also serve a social and economic need. And that's one of the reasons. And as we go through the recovery period, for me, one of the big areas I want to focus on is SMEs. How can we support SMEs together with banks and other like-minded institutions so that SMEs come back? Because if SMEs come back, the economy will come back, employment will come back, and the country will be back on track.
We know you were dropping by, and we have to thank you very much for just coming in and giving us those words. Peter Ndegwa, the CEO of Safaricom, we thank you very much for joining us. We want to invite you. Now, this is an official invitation. Everybody is hearing, and we'd like you to say yes so that everybody
can hear.
Yes. Especially, we'd like to have the conversations about, that supporting of business, how Safaricom can plug into the very many other needs and other opportunities that will help people to develop their lives, because that's it. And the way you've put it, I like the way you've just basically said, it's about people, it's about coming up with products that will address the needs of the people, the bottom line. I've not heard you saying it's about our shareholders and giving a return to our shareholders and profit to your shareholders. I'm sure you give that now during the AGMs and SGMs, but when you're speaking to the people, it's a very, very good thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant to be here. And I thank you Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's called the hot seat.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Asante sana.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's Peter Ndegwa. Good morning.
All right, let's look at the state of things on Mombasa Road this morning. Traffic is actually really bad all the way from Mombasa Road down towards Westlands. It's quite the chock-a-block situation, guys. It's Friday morning and things are an absolute mess. If to give you an option here, it looks as if the Eastern Bypass might be able to help instead of getting stuck on Mombasa Road, because, yes, again, it is quite the mess. Looking at Thika Road as well, trying to get into the CBD. Can you use another option? No, unfortunately, you're going to have to use this one. Unfortunately, also, there's an accident on Thika Road today, and they're trying to mop that up. So this is what we see. At a standstill for more than 45 minutes, still on Mombasa Road. The Southern Bypass is an option to get into the CBD. You might want to use that longer, but you will get there eventually. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see, and we'll share the word this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian Bible.
Look at running a company of Safaricom's size and reputation as well. But let's wait for that day. Can't really wait for the day. So let's have this conversation now. Taking us back to the day when Chief Justice David Maraga called the media, and he addressed the media from the steps of the offices of the Supreme Court of Kenya, his office. And he came and his message was very clear and direct. We have a government that has on several occasions shown direct contempt of the judiciary by first of all disobeying court orders and also going to a point where the executive is stalling on the judiciary's reform progress and reform agenda. When the Judicial Service Commission sits and advertises positions of Court of Appeal judges, people apply for those positions. The Judicial Service Commission goes through an entire process of interviewing, vetting, and even going to a point of nominating suitable candidates and saying, Mr. President, as the law requires, here are names of individuals who've gone through the due process, and we'd like you to appoint them to become judges. And the president goes quiet. And then this matter is brought, even it goes up to the court, and the courts determine the matter, and they say, no, the president ought to make this appointment. And still the president goes quiet. Chief Justice David Maraga just came out basically guns blazing the other day and said, come on, Mr. President. We expect that at least, the very least, you shall obey court orders. And even the very least, you shall grant us that kind of decorum. We are an equal arm of government as the judiciary. We are equal to the other two arms of government, the executive and the legislature. Please treat us with that decorum. It brought so many conversations, right? And we even had it, we discussed it here for like 2 days. The Law Society of Kenya itself has said, no. We fought the president as well. We stand with the Chief Justice. We see what the Chief Justice is saying. There are those who have said, yeah. The Chief Justice may be raising some issues, but what exactly has he done? The Attorney General's response to this particular issue was saying, but you have failed the judiciary. Mr. Chief Justice, you have failed the judiciary.
This is at your feet.
Yeah. And now this is where we get into the context of things. This is not the first time that the judiciary and the executive are having a clash, especially under the 2010 Constitution. Among the things that the 2010 Constitution ensured is to try and give judiciary more independence. Have a Judicial Service Commission that is more transparent in how it comes into office. Have a Judicial Service Commission that shall appear more transparent in how it conducts its business. And also, even from the recruitment of judges to the recruitment of the Chief Justice of the Republic. Let's speak to a man who has good experience on this. And this man was the first Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya and President of the Supreme Court and Chairman of the Judicial Service Commission under the 2010 Constitution, Dr. Willie Mutunga. Dr. Willie, good morning.
Morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Right. Thanks.
So, Willie, first of all, before we even get into the topic of the day, it's been a while. We see, yes, you're active on other forums. We see you're active on social media. How are you spending your retirement, Willie?
A lot of writing. A lot of thinking, reading. I work from home. In any case, this is not new because even as Chief Justice, when I wasn't sitting, I would just come home and work from here. Yeah, so lockdown for me started in 2016. So
you've been on lockdown for.
This is nothing new for you.
Yes, it's not new, and there's an opportunity to do a lot of stuff, yoga, meditation, cooking, and there were so many books I hadn't read, and now manage to read them. So
You become a bookworm.
I always was. Yeah.
I'm hoping that among the things that you're writing is a memoir.
Yeah, that was finished actually in 2018. But publishers are pretty difficult to get. You give them that story, they say, "Oh, this is a Kenyan story," and so forth. But there are two who are keen on publishing it. So I hope probably by the end of the year it will be out. And I'm currently writing another book, which is more of a legal text about jurisprudence, constitutionalism, looking at the judicial politics, which judges always say that they are not involved in politics, when that is a confirmation that they are. And also what is called the extrajudicial work. Judges used to say that they think through their judgments.
Yep.
Which is another falsehood, because when you're called, like you are calling me now, to the discussion gives me a chance to talk about something that is the topic raised by other people.
Yeah.
And so under the new constitution, what is called public participation, where transparency and accountability is something new that judges have to to kind of think about and realize this is important. When you're given a chance to talk, you just seize it. I know there are some judges who will go to church and they will be asked, "Can you tell us about this and that?" and they disappear before the church service is over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but internalizing the 20th Constitution is a problem that is faced not only by the executive, parliament, and the judiciary itself, but also the citizens.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the citizens, I listened in when you talked to Kiama. Because I thought you guys were actually auditing the civil society rather than the government, but that is something you discuss
Right.
with them. But I told Brian that I was very happy you pushed one thing, and that was what is to be done.
Yeah.
You kept on asking them that question. I don't think they answered it actually.
No.
But it was a great question to basically keep people saying exactly what they want to do.
Yeah.
Under the Constitution, even if you want to say you are preparing a revolution, you can say so.
Yep.
There's no problem. Yeah.
You can say whatever you wish to say.
Yeah, I mean, once they know that you want to overthrow them, then they'll deal with you. But there's a revolution of ideas.
Yeah.
Where people talk about it, and they talk about COVID-19 and the opportunities that are around to speak about the right to food, housing, education, the health itself.
Yeah.
Those are discussions that have been very, 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 very useful. And freedom of expression, of course, is very, 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 very important. But people tend to feel like they are under attack when they are asked exactly what you are doing. What happened to that guy is very unfortunate. But we all know that the police has been colonial for a long time. What they did to Kiama is what they did to me in 1982. It's not different. You
Same
get picked,
thing, generations apart.
Yeah, and they tell your wife, "We are taking you to Central Police Station," and you end up in Embakasi, And there is that trajectory. You know, David D was picked from Mombasa and driven to Nairobi.
Yep.
Can you imagine if the guys stop in the voyage they did in the forest?
My goodness.
What? Yeah, it's very, very, frightening. And I think the Constitution is very, very clear. The police could have come to the police station. We have questions, and you get a lawyer or go by himself or whoever, and it will be a conversation according to the law.
Yep.
And they can take statements and so forth.
Yep.
And they prepare the file. You know, this idea of picking people on Friday or whatever, and you haven't done investigations, then you go to court and say,
we require more time.
Yeah, why did why not investigate? Let the DPP also give an opinion whether this is a matter that should be prosecuted or not.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
And the person, writes a statement. It's very, very frightening when somebody comes and actually knocks down your door and handcuffs you. Luckily, I think this guy doesn't even have a girlfriend, so there were no witnesses there.
Yeah.
Right.
Fortunately, he had his Facebook Live, which
be able to
served
use that
as
information that he had
making
been
all
picked
of
up.
us the witnesses.
Yeah. Because like the kids who watch that, I remember my kids. Like my son has never recovered from that trauma of seeing
you being picked up.
And the whole place the house being turned upside down by these guys who are armed and whatnot. The police, in my view, has to be completely humanized. You know, and I have very great sympathy with the co-plotters in '82 when they said a whole lot of them should go home. And you start afresh. It's something that we've got to hold them accountable. Article 2 that is of the Constitution is very clear. So I hope anyway.
We'll get there.
You guys will continue.
We will continue pushing this conversation. Actually, now that you've talked about, the kind of stuff that Kiama went through and others, and even yourself, it brings us now to the judiciary, which is where we hope to go and get reprieve when we feel that our rights have been trampled on by the executive, or even by the legislature, or even by fellow Kenyans. Now, looking at the state of the judiciary so far, from when the Constitution of Kenya was being drafted, it was looking at making the judiciary a stronger and more independent arm of government. You served in the first judiciary of this Constitution. You have been there, of course, looking and observing at how the judiciary has been operating. Do you feel that the judiciary has taken steps towards getting that independence, where we can actually look at it and see this is our protector?
I mean that's a great question. What I will tell you is that I've always thought that the judiciary is at a crossroads after this Constitution was passed, and the question is whether the judiciary becomes an appendage of the executive and the parliament and the other, economic forces that keep it dependent. A lot of people forget that it's not just the executive, parliament, corporate interests, civil society interests that affects the independence of the judiciary. My experience is that the ethnic communities where judges come from affects their independence seriously.
Are you serious? How?
Yes. In my case, my independence was tested by the Kamba community. This notion that this is this is an ethnic office. So self-appointed people, pastors and other people will come and tell me, well, why are you building courts in Garissa, not Makueni?
Yeah.
Why is the Kitui court not being modernized? You just reconstructing it and so forth. And I talked to them, I respected them, and after a while I thought this was not going anywhere. So I told them, you know what, the people of North Frontier District have been marginalized for a long time. They also need courts. So we're going to have courts in Garissa, in Isiolo, Marsabit, Lodwar, because that was supported by Kibaki. So I told them this is what
the government wants.
The president wants, so that there is some kind of demarginalization.
So you deflected the attention from you and said, "This is."
Yeah, and they told me, okay, it's up to you. When you get into trouble, don't come to us. I said, obviously, I will not come to you. I will go to people who are given courts.
Yes.
They'll defend me.
Yes.
So that one, and even the spouses, the children, the relatives, and so forth, you can be compromised in a lot of ways. So it's the judiciary is at the crossroads, and it has to decide whether it's going to support the citizens, become a temple of justice, to protect people's rights under the Constitution. I get very upset when magistrates are asking poor people, to pay bails of 5,000, knowing they can't afford it.
Yeah.
When the Constitution basically asks a simple question: will this person, attend trial? You can even call the chief from his village and tell the chief, make sure that this guy attends court.
Yeah.
So this 100 million, I don't know what. Even if the billionaires can pay, I think it's very, very difficult to see how they are not implementing what we call the bail bond, manual that we came up with. But anyway, that's
Dr. Mutunga, I wanted to ask you a question.
Yes.
In your time as Chief Justice, what would you consider to have been your greatest challenge?
I really the greatest challenge really is dealing with the political leadership. It's the most difficult thing to work on a progressive constitution when the people you are working with, they don't want to implement it. So some governor told me the other day, which I think is a great metaphor. He said the Constitution is a beautiful baby that the country has birthed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we've taken it and given it to the dares of this world, who are child traffickers, and they trade in body parts, children's body parts. How do you expect the child to ever
to be nurtured and to grow?
Yeah, so it's the politics, and I think the question that Brian was telling me that we are going to discuss is about that. It's about a situation where the politics and the politicians are not realizing that implementing the Constitution is a national interest, and all arms of government should see that as a constant north, where you work in tandem, seamlessly with one another.
Willie, so then can I interject and ask you then, if you see then as interference by the political class having been one of your greatest challenges at that point, then what is your perspective of what is currently happening in terms of the standoff between the judiciary and the executive now?
Yeah. Let me say that I'm not going to respond to the CJ's position or the AG, but I want to give you certain facts so that you can, make up your mind about that standoff. Okay. And the first one is the one that you had mentioned first about appointments. All right.
Yeah.
I want to say under the new constitution, the appointments are very public. People apply; they are not appointed. They're subjected to public interviews, and by the Judicial Service Commission. And the Judicial Service Commission gets reports from serious departments of the executive. The KRA, has to confirm that the candidate is tax compliant, right? The DCI has to give you what is called certificate of good conduct, right? The anti-corruption commission has to file a report. Higher Education Loans Board has also to file a report. The Judicial Service Commission itself, if you have been a judge or a magistrate and you're asking for promotion, your file is full of stuff, complaints and so forth. That is scrutinized as well. Law Society of Kenya, if you are practicing advocate, they will have to file a report to say whether you have complaints against you. All right.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of that. Not to mention that members of public can come in and basically say, "Oh, this guy, don't appoint him. He has these issues and so forth." And of course, you ask the candidate to respond to these issues. Now, when the judiciary then, the JSC says these are the people we are appointing, right? The constitution is very, very, very clear. The president has to swear them in, except for the Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice whose nominations you have to hand over to Parliament for vetting.
Yeah.
Because that's the constitution. But for ordinary judges, then that process is sufficient. And this is because as I've said, the executive is represented in the recruitment.
Yes.
With these reports coming from NIS, I should have said NIS files reports. The president is represented by the Attorney General, the chair of the Public Service Commission.
Yeah.
He appoints two people, a woman and a man, to represent the public. But that's theoretically that's what they're supposed to do. But they're
appointees of the president.
Yes, and so there are those ones, and the Judicial Service Commission is balanced that way. The judiciary is represented, the executive is represented, the law society is represented, the public is represented. People can discuss whether that balance is actually apt.
Yeah.
If they want to amend the constitution, whether you want to have more, somebody from parliament, from the corporate sector, so that you broaden the membership. But once that is done, the president has to do it. And if you remember, in 2015, we had the same problem.
You had a standoff, yes, with the executive.
Yes, we appointed some judges, and the president said, in fact, that time he appointed some and didn't appoint others.
Yeah.
And what we did in 2015 was, as a JSC, we sought for a meeting with the president to find out what his problem was. And he said that he's not a rubber stamp. He has to be involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
But you were able to seek and find audience with the president, were you not? I think one of the issues that we see here also is that Justice Marga has not been able to get audience with the president, so he's told us.
Yeah, this is why we're talking about political situations, because they are not constant. They keep on changing. During my time as Chief Justice, I had very good relations with Kibaki and Raila, for 2 years. In fact, Kibaki funded the judiciary. Our budget moved from 3 billion to 17 billion.
Yeah.
And that's why we were able to build courts and so forth. He is committed to that. And so when Ruto and Uhuru came in, we also had, good relations. We had, the president used to chair something, the three arms. It was an issue. Muturi would come and I'll be there. Particularly when in the judiciary, between the three arms, when Cholet was dismissed and then they wanted to dismiss members of the Judicial Service Commission, I think you remember.
Yes.
And the case was in court. So we sat down and we said, we have to talk. And the president chaired the meeting. And so during my time, I had the president's cell phone because cell phone number, because the first time I met him, I said, I don't want to talk to you through proxies.
I want to have direct access.
Yes, so give me your cell phone number, which he did.
Right.
And so I would call and he would call. And there was that dialogue, and that dialogue is actually in the Constitution.
So basically, what I'm hearing you saying, Willie, is that, like you said, it's the politics side of things. You have to be able to play the political game as well.
Yeah. I mean, you have to play that game, because sometimes the president might not return your call.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't return your call, you go to Siaya, where you are opening a court and you say something like, this court will not be built if Parliament continues denying funds.
Yeah.
Politicians are always afraid of public opinion, so you have to find out how to do it. But coming back to 2015, which is something that is very important. We sat with President Uhuru, and he was listening, and we said, let's look for consensus. And he said, I get information outside the departments you are consulting. And he said, yes, of course, the president can get intel from FBI, CIA, Mossad, and other, even the Chinese, about people who are applying.
Yeah.
And so we said, yes, you have a point. Okay. You can give us that information when you have it, all right? So that the JSC considers it and is able to also ask questions of the candidates, so that is what we call due process.
Yeah. Because
you cannot take that information as true unless you ask the candidate, is this true, what has happened, and so forth.
To respond.
And we went on and said that once the shortlisting is done, the names will be sent to the president, so that if he has any information he wants to share with the Judicial Service Commission, the Judicial Service Commission will go into it. And he was happy with that, and that's how we settled that issue, and the people were actually appointed.
Let me interject here and see if I'm getting this right. So the agreement was, before the public nomination, you'll have some back channel communication with the president and say, these are the people that we intend to nominate.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
You give the names, and you tell the president we have already gotten reports from NIS, from everybody. All right.
Yes.
But we are asking you specifically, so to be part of it, if you have evidence or information, so that we can process it. And if I don't remember him giving any information after that, but we as a Judicial Service Commission, we religiously made sure we kept the part of our bargain. And a lot of these things are just about discussions. And sometimes I think, in fact, the judiciary is its own worst enemy, because there are people there who go and tell the politicians that the legal position is this.
Yeah.
So because it's not an institution that is united, it has its own divisions, and so that's the constitutional position. The Constitution makes the president a rubber stamp, in the sense that he has to swear in people.
Yeah.
But he participates
politically. You need to find a way of involving the president.
Yes, and I think that whatever happens, the president, the chief justice, the speaker, they should all know that the Constitution says they derive their authority from the people.
Yes.
That's what the Constitution says. All right. So you've got to depersonalize,
the issues.
And look at the bigger picture.
Would you say it's the same thing, even when it comes? The same would apply when it comes to the other complaints that we've had from the judiciary, like about funding. You've talked about how you worked with President Kibaki. He increased the funding from the judiciary from 3 to, was it 7 billion?
17,
17 billion.
17. It was quite a.
It was a huge. It was a jump. It was a considerable.
It was a jump, and we convinced him. The whole funding.
But now we are hearing from the judiciary that the funding is being reduced. And it's also a source of the conflict that we have between the judiciary and the executive.
It has to be, and this narrative that the executive and the parliament own resources is a very false, narrative. This money belongs to the Kenyan people, and the judiciary should be given its percentage. Actually, internationally, it's 2.5%. That judiciaries are given. All right. Now, as we talk, the frustration of CJ Maraga is very clear to me, because there are courts that are not completed.
Yeah.
Okay. And they ought to be, completed. There is this recruitment of judges. There is what is called the judiciary fund. Where the money ought to be, put in. That hasn't been completed yet. Because if you are building a court, you do it in a year. You need the money put in that fund so that you can go through the processes of procurement and whatnot.
Yeah.
But what happens is that if you don't spend the money within a year, it goes back to the treasury. And this is why I think the people have to understand that the executive and the parliament don't own those resources. This idea of telling one institution that we will starve you of resources, because it's totally unconstitutional.
How can we ring fence this to ensure that the money that goes to the judiciary is not subject to manipulation by the other two arms of government? Because this is what clearly we are seeing is at play now.
That's what we were pushing all the time. We were basically saying, let's adopt the international standards, where you know exactly how much money is coming to the judiciary, from the budget. All right?
Yes.
Just the way the executive gets his own cut, Parliament gets its own cut, the institutions that have been created, this under the Constitution has to be transparent. It's not a matter of people saying that, okay, we will punish you because you haven't done A, B, or C. The resources belong to the people, and the people are the ones that have given the executive, parliament, and judiciary authority. So there ought to be a situation that is discussed that completely gets rid of this narrative that the judiciary can tell, the executive, okay, you have not given us money, we will not be deciding in your favor or something like that,
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous under this, constitutions. And the leadership in this country, whether it's in the judiciary and whatever, they have to focus on what I call the national interest, where you move out of the so-called separation of powers,
Talking of national interest, Daktari, someone who held a similar position to the one you held in the U.S. still holds it, John G. Roberts, Jr.
Yeah.
He is remembered for, among other things, upholding something that it was assumed he wouldn't. He was a nominee of George W. Bush, a Republican.
Yes.
And it was therefore assumed he had Republican leanings, but he upheld something that the Republicans wanted to shoot down at every given opportunity, Obamacare. So he will be remembered for the greatest time about this. What would you say you can be best remembered for when you were Chief Justice?
I don't, one thing I've always told people is that when I was working in the judiciary, I didn't give a damn about legacy and about how be remembered. Okay, because the politics of division in this country, you always judged on the basis of ethnic lens, on the basis of so many things.
Yeah.
You can. I don't see any objectivity, right? So I don't talk about what my legacy is. I let people say what they want.
Perhaps we can ask it in a different way. What are you most proud of?
Huh?
What are you most proud of in your tenure as a Chief Justice?
What am I not proud of?
What are you most
proud of?
Most proud of? I think it's the what we call judicial transformation from the margins, where you basically know that there are problems. There's opposition to what you have. You're supposed to do, but you still find spaces to do something. And one of the things I remember, which I might say I'm proud of, the first reform undertook in the judiciary was to give tea to everybody, because tea used to be drunk by.
I was actually going to ask you, like, literal tea or tea.
Kitu kidogo chai.
No, not the bride. We started. Family teas in courts when at 11, you would meet and have tea and some bitings and just interact. Before that, when I got there, I remember going to the office of one of the lady judges, and I saw that she had 3 flasks of tea. And I was just wondering how one person can drink so much tea. Flasks. And I realized, of course, the secretaries drank it, the drivers drank it, and we had the budget, so we said everybody should get tea. So there was little things that we were able to do, particularly when the Kibaki government, the Kibaki and the Raila government, basically said, okay, you can build courts all over the place.
Yeah.
and the World Bank came in and gave us more money.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is public service is very frustrating, particularly when your vision is not supported by the political leadership. But there is always something you can do. The Constitutional Court of South Africa was very, very lucky when it was formed, because the political leadership of Madiba, all right, supported them completely. So when you are supported like that, and you know where the country is going, all of you are pushing in the national interest. It helps. And we had discussions at the Judicial Training Institute with I remember we had great discussions with the security people about terrorism. Okay, because they had concerns. So we would meet and basically say, this is the constitution, this is what is happening, and we would get their views, because if the judiciary is detached from what's happening in the country, all right, aloof and bewildered, it can also be a problem, particularly when you're talking about national interests as well. So it's the implementation of the constitution, of course, will take time. But there are certain narratives that the citizens have got to be involved in. I don't see why the citizens in Siaya, Makueni, Nairobi, and other places where the courts have not been built can't actually go to their MPs and say, why did you stop this money coming to build this court? Why didn't you give it to the judiciary? Yeah, but our people are just divided. The barons are geniuses in dividing them. So,
completely. We will never see eye to eye. We're talking about tribe, or now it's political affiliations, who you're affiliated to.
Yes, but there is a great opportunity that I see in people thinking alternatives, particularly about this pandemic. What you hear from ordinary people is very, very important. We can't wash our hands because we don't have water and we can't afford soap. You cannot have a total lockdown because we have to go out and work. And the universal health care is now an issue of not just the working class, but the middle classes like ourselves. And even the middle classes, you guys and me, I'm sure at the end of the month you get very angry because you have to start sending money by M-Pesa to, cousins, relatives. And we are subsidizing the state. The state has the resources. It has to stop stealing the resources, and it has to
do what's good for the public.
What is good for the public? What is the use of having a national debt that equals the amount that has been stolen by our elite since the independence? It's a crazy arithmetic. They will have to pay off those debts, not the people. But it's not too late for the political leadership to realize that we cannot elect them and then they take orders from cartels, foreign interests, what is called the illicit economy. You have to love your people. I couldn't imagine how in the midst of pandemic you go and demolish
people's homes.
In the Ruai and this other place, Kariobangi. And then the police beating up people, the killings and so forth. So I feel very, very, very strongly that the political leadership doesn't love the people it rules.
It's
How-
not
how
behold,
do
It's
you-
not beholden to the people. Actually, we were speaking with somebody yesterday. And he said, "To whom are they beholden? If it's not the people, then they are not going to serve the people. They are going to serve their own masters
interests.
and their interests."
Yeah, but they will have to change, because you see a lot of the system historically that survive.
Yeah.
All right, survive because they give concessions.
True.
You started doing stuff like this pandemic. It was a great opportunity for the government, in my view, to give water to the slum areas,
Yeah.
watering places.
Yes.
After all, that water is just managed by cartels in Nairobi water. I've been a victim of it myself, so I know how they do it.
Yeah.
So it's a question of saying, open up those taps for 2 months or so. All right.
Yeah.
It's deal with the question of the giving people food if there's going to be a lockdown. Don't let people, the charity, the churches and other people start doing that. The state is the one that has more resources. So you show the people that you care, and they remember. Look at the millionaires. I think it's only one who contributed something. Is it Mwangi?
Yeah. Only Dr. Mwangi.
Yeah, they could have raised, billions with all their foundations, or the Safaricom foundations, breweries and whatnot. At least show they care about people.
Actually, Willie, there is to be fair. There's also the other one, Narendra Raval, the one for Simba Cement. He also contributed.
Yeah, because you just have to to give back, because the system is about property, power, and profits before people. But there comes a time when you basically you want to stabilize the nation, and you make concessions that might be painful. All right, but you make them.
Yeah.
You make them. That's the nature of politics. When you look at it historically, look at the history of Europe after 1945. They became socialists overnight and went into what is called welfare capitalism. If you didn't have jobs, you got
a stipend from the government. Yes.
And that's when the UK and Europe came up with universal health care.
Yes.
UK abandoned it during Thatcher, but the continental Europe, particularly the Scandinavian countries, if you go to Holland and these other places, their universal health care is strong. And that's the situation also in China.
Yeah.
Where the states basically take certain, treat certain public goods as public goods, education, health, the right to work, transport, prices of food, you control them, and you tax the rich.
Yeah.
Because the rich in this country, do you think they pay taxes?
Well, of course they don't.
Yeah.
Dr. Willie Mutunga, we have to let you go. We understand that you were getting into a meeting. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Dr. Willie Mutunga, you remember him, was a Chief Justice between 2011 and 2016. And now, like he's telling us, he's a retired man who works from home, reading, writing, thinking, and we are seeing a lot of what he's been doing at home coming out in public domain. Asante sana for speaking to us, and keep listening to Spice FM.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and make your spice pili-pili. I think you are moving in that direction.
Asante sana.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
Thank you, and have a good day.
Yeah, have a good day too. Thanks.
All right. It's a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, 7 to 9.
Right, it seems seems to be clouding up just a little bit in Nairobi this morning, and those partly cloudy conditions will carry on through the day. Currently at 17 degrees, we'll see highs of 23, and the showers will come down later. In Nyeri, partly cloudy this morning, we'll see highs of 22 at 17 degrees right now. Into Nakuru, where partly cloudy conditions will lead to rains and highs of 23. In Eldoret at partly cloudy conditions at 15. We'll see thunderstorms with highs of 19. In the afternoon in Kisumu, the rains will come down, highs of 26 and lows of 18. Looking then into Kakamega, where it's partly cloudy now, but soon to be showery conditions with highs of 23 and lows of 14. Mombasa is partly cloudy at 26 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 24. And in Malindi, where it's partly cloudy this morning at 27, it'll all change to rainy conditions with highs of 29. All right, out of Kenya and into Kampala, where it's partly cloudy at 19 degrees. It's going to be a rainy afternoon with highs of 25. And then into Dar es Salaam, where it's clear skies this morning at 25 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 22. Johannesburg is partly cloudy. At now -1 degree, we will see highs only of 9 degrees and lows of -2. In Lagos this morning, it's clear skies at 25 degrees, partly cloudy conditions with highs of 28 and lows of 23 with a rainy weekend in store. All right, let's take a quick look into the continental United States, where in New York, it's partly cloudy at 23. It's going to be a warm day with highs of 31 and lows of 15. And into Europe, where it's clear skies, light rain showers coming in Paris at 16 degrees. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 13. And we'll wrap things up for today in London, where it's partly cloudy at 15 degrees. And it'll be grey skies and rainy conditions in London with highs of 22 and lows of 14.
Welcome to Spice
All right, it's
FM,
5
the best exclusive radio.
Conversation continues. Dr. William Mutunga has said something that I think just stuck with me. It's about balancing politically. It doesn't mean that because you sit in this position and you're in the judiciary, you are removed from playing politics. Internal politics, organizational politics is important wherever you are. And this was it. Giving his own example in 2015, where the president there had refused to appoint some judges, saying, you know what, I have information. Yeah, NIS had cleared some guys, but I received information from other quarters, and there's a reason why I cannot, in good conscience, appoint these people. It will have even ramifications in terms of how we are viewed by our international partners. Our partners have come and told us something. And they worked out a way in which they agreed, before we go public, we shall involve you in this. We shall vet, we shall interview, we shall do our shortlist, and before we say that, Mr. President, officially, this is who we have nominated, we shall approach you and tell you, Mr. President, this is who we are thinking of nominating.
And remember,
involve the president in this process as well.
He said he did not seek an appointment for himself.
Yep.
It's the JSC that sought an appointment with the president. Okay? It is possible that Justice Maraga also went through the similar route. But he kept repeating that he had good relationships with the president and
the former prime minister.
Yes.
In Kibaki Raila government.
He said he had good relations with them.
And even in this one, with the president and the deputy, he also cultivated some working relationship.
He did.
He cultivated the work. Yes, there's friction here and there, but you have to find ways. It's at the end of the day, it's the greater good.
That's
Who
being sought for.
ends up suffering here? What ends up being the victim? If the greater good is going to be affected, step back and see what can you do about this. And I think without saying very many words, he has said very many words. Lesson there learned by the current.
Like, without talking about a legacy, he has talked about a legacy.
He has talked about a legacy. That's it. Yep.
We spoke, I think, just looking at this, we kind of spoke about this before, and he said, there really isn't anything under the sun that cannot be sorted out with a little bit of give here and there.
Yeah.
Really nothing. And I think that is, it bears import in what former Chief Justice Willie said this morning, in the sense that, you can always talk a little bit. You can always bend here or there. So long as you're not throwing your morals out the window, there's always a little give that you can provide. Because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is get what you want and what you need. In this case, if you're looking at the judiciary, it's the independence that you seek.
So
it's the control of the purse that you seek, so that you can get justice actually done in the country. That's what you seek. So do you need to give a little bit here and there? Yes. Do you need to put ego aside every now and then?
Yes, you do.
Do you need to try once and then try the second time and then try the third time? Absolutely.
Yes, you do.
Necessary to be done. And I think we've learned that.
Coming to the top of the hour, City Muga, today's proverb. Remember that proverb?
Yes, he that beats the drum for the madman to dance is no better than the madman himself.
These are those people, the Igbo.
What do you mean? Look at him.
Again, the Igbo have very many proverbs.
He meant those people who have many proverbs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's what he meant when
I
he
thought
said
he was
those
just
people.
flinging words recklessly.
No, he wasn't. He's a respectful man. And he respects other communities.
Yes. Even those from... Good morning. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 9 o'clock.
Right, so it's not good times for people who are stuck on Mombasa Road and Thika Road this morning. It is gridlock everywhere you look. It is Friday, and everybody's trying to get somewhere. In and outbound on Thika Road, as is normally the practice when people are trying to get out at certain roadblocks. We have a problem here, and it's going to take a little bit of time to get through. The roadblocks are a roadblock for a reason. Getting into the CBD, not too painful right now. It has opened up just a little bit, and it's heading to town from Lolongo on Mombasa Road. That is a gridlock, and many are saying it's unnecessary, but that is what we see. Today, it seems, is the mother of all traffic jams, and it is bearing children as we speak. Hopefully, you'll be able to get out of it soon enough, and we'll give you an update in a short while about how that looks. Spice FM KE, you have something to share with us about where you might be stuck or where you find an opening? Do let us know.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations.
Remember,
the
you can tune
Situation
into the
Room,
Situation
witty,
Room from wherever
political,
you are
engaging,
in the world,
deep.
www.spicefm.co.ke. You can also watch us on Facebook, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And you can tune in terrestrial frequencies, 97.7 in Malindi. If you're in Kisumu, 102.5. When you go to Nakuru, 96.0. Eldoret, 96.7. Nyeri, 90.9. Mombasa, 87.9. And Nairobi, 94.4. This, being Kenya's biggest conversation, will reflect on the big conversations around the country and the world on a daily basis. So yeah, we've just talked to the former Chief Justice, Dr. Willie Mutunga, and we had also said we're going to be looking at Ukur Yatani's first budget in Parliament and what he said yesterday. The Standard has described it as a budget to the rescue. And it says this is a balancing act from tax incentives to cash transfers to kazi mtaani to loans to small businesses. The CS is hoping that 2.79 trillion shillings budget will heal an economy that is hit by coronavirus, an escalation of a health crisis, massive job losses, and shrinking revenues. So let's start from there. Because of COVID-19, we have an escalation of job losses, right? People have lost jobs. We were speaking with the CEO of Safaricom, Peter Ndego, and he says we can clearly see that in terms of the economy shrinking, we can really feel it. Even though they zero-rated transfer of money on the M-Pesa platform to any amount below 1,000 shillings, they are already seeing from the volumes of transactions that were happening before COVID and the volumes of transactions happening now during COVID, there's already a clear drop. It means that people are not transacting as much. But also, he's noting that people are keeping cash in their M-Pesa wallets for longer. And they're basically saving. So you can clearly see they don't want to spend. People are holding on to the little that they have because you're only keeping it on M-Pesa and thinking, I don't know what tomorrow portends. So I'm just going to keep this money on M-Pesa for consumption. It's basically for consumption. People are not investing, but also the small loans that we're offering through the M-Pesa platforms, they are still maintained the same way, stable, which is telling you that people are still coming onto these platforms to borrow. You would have expected that during such a crisis, borrowing would spike. The reason why borrowing is not spiking is because people are not sure, I borrow, how shall I pay? It could also be an indicator. So with all that in mind, bearing all that in mind, job losses, the government coming up with measures to try and cushion the shrinking revenues, 2.79 trillion shilling budget unveiled by the CS for the National Treasury yesterday. And among the things that they're saying is giving out cash transfer programs to the vulnerable, the elderly, the physically disabled. We're also talking about giving now cash, kazi mtaani, to the youth, 15 billion shillings going to that program, targeting some 200,000 youth to get cash directly so they can sweep the roads and collect garbage and clog the drainages and
then what happens to those who have already been employed to do these things?
Right. They lose their jobs
those ones, no, they keep earning.
For
Work from home.
Oh, okay.
Or they're
Sweep roads from home.
Or become the supervisors.
Collect garbage from home.
Wait. You don't sweep backwards, you sweep the front.
You say that and it sounds funny, but it's actually true. People actually...
Wacha kusukuma hiyo kitu mbele, weka sideways.
Wewe unashikaje wheelbarrow? Watu walisomea wapi? Nyinyi hamwezi kupata kazi. Yes. That's what those guys who are employed will do. All right? But 15 billion shillings will come out of the national coffers and find its way somehow to 200,000 youth.
Unfortunately, I think this is all very. It's always touted as something that would come in and really help to boost the profile of what the nation is currently feeling when it's budget time, right? There's so many things that happened this year before the budget could have been read. Before we even came to this place where it was budget moment, so many things had happened that were going to put a dent in this already. The economy was already struggling. They were already looking for ways to lengthen this piece of cloth that was supposed to make this coat, right? And things then started happening in the country where it seems like we're taking an upside down kind of position. And then COVID, in all her glory, came in and took over. There was money that was received just recently to make up for last year's budget. Let's not forget about that. That last year's budget still had not been realized in the true sense of the word a month before this new budget was going to be read out. And unfortunately, I think we find ourselves, this country finds itself in a situation whereby even with the reading of the budget, it's dismal. It's dismal in what it has to offer because things are already upside down. It's dismal in what it's been able to offer. Even when we talk about the winners, looking at to have this budget translate into reality is going to be the difficult part about all of this.
Yeah.
And we must understand that the budget process is not just about announcing the numbers, but it's actually seeing this budget to fruition. And that's where I see the problem here. That are we actually going to see the reality of some of these things that we are seeing allocation has been done to actually have it on the ground and say it will be sorted out? A lot of these things it has been called a reactionary budget. A lot of these things are supposed to take care of the big holes that COVID has left or that COVID has created.
Yeah.
Is it actually going to happen? And I think now the dark cloud that is upon the heads of very many people at this point is that, oh my gosh, it really isn't. You're talking about Kazi Amtani right now. Is it actually going to happen? We're talking about things like taking care of floods. It's not the first time floods have happened in this country. This money that has been allocated, will it be sorted out? Water and natural resource issues, said to be one of the big winners. Is it going to be sorted out? Education, we talked about this last year, where the state of education, even the state of and infrastructure of schools around the country, many for which have been shut down. Will this budget actually then fill the holes? And I think it is very scary that you have Kenyans walking around with this dark cloud over their heads saying, that's great that we've written a budget. It's great that these are the numbers that have been anticipated for the country. But if we cannot see the reality of these numbers, that is where the problem is going to be.
There is a lot that's being said. So first of all, let's look at the tourism sector, all right? Our big cash earner. 5 billion shillings has been given to support the industry operations, 160 conservancies, and recruit 5,500 community scouts.
Continue.
On paper, some things, you look at it and you see like it's a big figure. However, the players in the sector are saying this is a drop in the ocean. Watch out the 5 billion, 13 billion shillings. Players in the multi-billion shilling tourism industry have expressed disappointment at the 12.8 billion shillings allocation to the sector in this year's budget. They say that they had expected more funding from the state in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. Sami Kwae, who's the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers, the Coast Branch Executive Officer, he says the allocation is too little to have any meaningful impact in the recovery efforts. There's a lot that needs to be done. Our hotel and tourism and hotel, remember, shut down. Like completely.
Yeah, we're not even talking about slowed down.
They did not slow down. They did not reduce their workers. It's not like maybe other manufacturing sector where you reduce your workers or you're impacted by the curfew, so your hours were reduced. This one, shut down. And you need to revive it to bring it back up. Do you expect that there's going to be any international travel by the end of this year? Reduced. Is it likely to recover? Reduced. And then now we're still looking at the other sectors. We said Konza City, 11.8 billion shillings being allocated to develop Konza City in this financial year. Farmers are getting 7.9 billion shillings to subsidize farm inputs for 200,000 small-scale farmers. 200,000 small-scale farmers. Kenya is an agricultural economy. True or not true? Koridongo.
Kweli.
Haya. Being an agricultural economy, a vast majority of Kenya's agricultural economy is on smallholder farm. True or not true?
True.
We are going to support 200,000 small-scale farmers. Drop or not drop? 200,000 small-scale farmers. We're not saying where. To expand irrigation and support horticultural farmers and to access international markets.
This is... by the way, this one is a never-ending story, especially this bit about expanding it so that you can access international markets.
This is always the goal. To subsidize farm inputs. This is fertilizer, seeds, and the other inputs that you require, the pesticides and all, to support them so that they can revive the export. So even if we said that we are looking at 200,000 small-scale farmers who are in irrigation of horticultural crop that goes straight for export. Okay? Kirinyaga County itself has very many of these. Those who do the beans and all for export. Just Kirinyaga here. Many. How many are we going to cover? How are we going to identify the 200,000?
Where are you going to start from?
This is all good and well. But now, which cart do you put? Do you actually put this cart before the horse before the cart?
Or do you just put both of them at the same time and tell them,
because I'm thinking...
Sort yourselves out. One pulls the other.
This is a good thing that they're talking about, and it's something that should be encouraged. But we don't even have food security in the country.
Yep.
There are places that have food security, but if you're talking about the country, the big picture, we do not have
food security.
No, we don't have food security.
And especially this year, our food security is severely under pressure because of a number of factors. 1, COVID. 2, floods. 3, our visitors. How many are there now? Couple of billions of visitors called locusts.
They're here.
Food security. All right.
Let me ask this simple question.
Ask.
The cereals board, do we know whether they've increased their capacity? Do we know? I'm asking the simple question.
Their capacity for storage? Oh, their capacity to
storage?
operate?
Oh, no. Their function is to store.
So their capacity for storage, if it has been increased. CT, just the other day, they were telling us that in terms of reserves, there's nothing. And the other day means 2 months ago. They were telling us that there's nothing. Up until the point now where the CS Agriculture now okayed the import of maize. And this process is ongoing as we speak to bring the maize into the country. And so many things were cited. The locust issue, the imminent famine that will happen in this country.
Maize
after
is
the floods take
always
place.
being imported in this country, even before the locust came.
Even before the locust came, and even, but here was the state of affairs that there was no food. In terms of reserves, there was nothing. Mr. Noah Wekesa told us in no uncertain terms that there was nothing. Later, it became an issue of the farmers' inability then to provide. So then we started to deal with which one is it
Do you
that
remember
we're
the
dealing
story
with.
of farmers not being able to provide? Then you find a conflicting report by the farmers and say, what are these we're talking
This
about?
is what we're saying. And then the farmer said, what are we talking about?
Our
We are
crop
even
is
trying
rotting.
to get them to, our crop is rotting. And then there was an issue of aflatoxin now saying because it has not been stored properly. So then we were dealt with 3 different narratives then about what it really was. There's zero reserves. Is the food contaminated, or are the farmers not able to provide for us then to stock up the reserves? So then you started to wonder which one was it. Still, at the end of the day, all of this leading to food insecurity in this country. And now when we look at one of the biggest winners in this budget being farmers, 7.9 billion to subsidize farm inputs and all these other wonderful things for 200,000 small-scale farmers across the country, you start to ask yourself then, is it really going to be adequate? If we're trying to achieve food security, is it adequate? And will we see? Because it's not about the numbers. We can put these numbers down. But unfortunately, again, it's the grim reality that it will not come to your fingertips.
Maybe they'll argue that, remember, there's the Big Four agenda, which has been allocated 128.3 billion shillings. One of the Big Four is food security. Maybe they'll argue and tell you that some of that money that we are talking about, in the Big Four, the 128 billion, is going towards food security. We'll address some of these issues. Some of the others that are not captured into 200,000.
When did we first hear of the Big Four agenda?
Big Four. In 2017, December.
Precisely, now. And it still had the same components, did it not? And during that period from 2017, have we not seen ourselves pouring out milk because we do not know what on earth to do with it?
We have.
Have we not seen potatoes rotting? Have we not seen maize rotting?
Have we not seen cries for people to be supported?
Yes, and then have we not seen
Millions of people
yes, have we
actually
not seen?
Sleeping hungry.
Yes, and
in
there's
the
all that
same
food.
country.
So,
Hilmat calling in from Nairobi. Good morning.
I would like to let you know, well, Kenya is definitely an agricultural country.
Right.
We had a wonderful project at Stana River for irrigation for maize. I don't know what happened to it finally.
The Galana Kulalu project.
That's right, yes. It was a wonderful project, but it never materialized. Why? We need to get an accountability for that seriously.
Yep. That's one of the questions that people do not want to hear asked.
Accountability.
Himat, you're asking a question that people would like to keep somewhere stored. Don't open that closet. There's an ambassador for Israel who actually asked to be recalled by his country. Because you remember Israel was the bigger partner of this project. And this ambassador said, this is the first time in the history of Israel that Israel has collaborated with another country to roll out a project, and that project is heading to failure. And it's not because of what the government of Israel is doing, it's because of what the host country is doing. So,
Such a shame.
It's a big shame.
So we need to find a solution to such issues, really. Accountability has to come in.
Yes.
This country is blessed and it's such a lot of potential. It's just unfortunately not managed well. So we need to work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Himat. And that's a very good point. It's about accountability. And that's what we are demanding this morning. You know, when you come up with a budget this big and you're saying, you know, it's a budget to rescue, to revive the economy and all these other sweet words, and you're not showing us exactly how. The exact mechanics of getting this done is what we are questioning this morning. And we'd like you to join the conversation, 0719-012-600. Do you feel that this budget is a budget to rescue the economy? Alan, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing, old chap?
I'm fine, old chap.
What do you think of this budget?
The biggest problem is the credibility of the numbers. You see, we were saying we were going to grow by 5.8.
Mm-hmm.
They brought it down.
Yep.
Their projections are now down to 2 point something.
Yep.
They are still, yet in the minister's speech, what you are hearing, I've allocated this billions to this. The number of times he says I've allocated. Then you are operating with a budget deficit of 8.9.
Yep.
The biggest question is, do your numbers add up?
Hmm.
Where is that money? Where's the cash flow going to come from?
Yep.
Now, what you're going to see, and I don't want to pretend to be a foreseer.
Mm.
You are going to see many supplementary budgets in this financial year with reallocations, because you know what happens when they say they have allocated 8 billion for Konza.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that money is there sitting.
True.
The issues. So when you want to spend, you have to apply.
Mm-hmm.
It will not be there. We are going to see pending bills, supplementary bills, supplementary budgets,
Yep.
reallocations. It's going to be hell this financial year, and interest rates may hit the roof because of government borrowing.
Yep.
That's my take.
Dire times indeed. Dire times. You're not a seer, but you can see gloom.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very, in terms of managing government finances,
Yep.
it's going to be a very, very, they're going to go through very tough times.
Thank you, Alan.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks.
0719-012-600. Do you feel that this budget is the budget that is required to jumpstart our economy from this bad 2020 year of COVID-19? Already, before we got into COVID-19, into this public health emergency, we're already in an economic crisis. Is this budget going to sort us out? 21 minutes after 9, let's take a look at the weather. The conversation continues.
Okay, not much in terms of changes. We will see Nairobi still be mostly cloudy today, currently at 18 degrees. It will be highs of 23 today, with showers expected for most parts of the afternoon well into Saturday. 18 degrees and mostly cloudy, highs of 22 and lows of 13 in Nyeri. And in Nakuru, where it will be a wet weekend, 23 the high and lows of 13. Eldoret at 15 degrees, thunderstorms expected later with highs of 19 and lows of 12. Kisumu is mostly sunny at the moment. That's going to change later because the heavens will open up into rain for most of the weekend with highs of 28 and lows of 17. All right, let's take a look then into Kakamega, where it's partly cloudy at 19 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 14 with showers in the afternoon. Mombasa is mostly sunny at this moment, 27 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 24. We'll take a look then into Malindi, where it is partly cloudy at 27 degrees, highs of 29 with showers expected for most parts of the evening. All right, let's look into Kampala, where it's partly cloudy at 21 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 18 with showers expected this afternoon through most of the weekend. Dar es Salaam is mostly sunny at 27 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 22. And in Johannesburg, it's cooling down as the minutes go by. It's -1 degree now in Johannesburg. We will only see highs of 9 and lows of -2. And wrap things up for the weekend today in Lagos, where scattered thunderstorms are the order of the day at 25 degrees. See highs of 28 and lows of 23 with showers going through till Monday.
the budget, this year's budget. It's 2.79 trillion shillings of a budget. The direct budget deficit here is around 840 billion shillings, the amount which is 8% of the GDP that the government needs to raise to meet its spending plan for the 2020-2021 financial year. We know that the government is projecting, it had put as its projection of raising taxation at about 1.8 initially, and then brought it back down to 1.6 trillion shillings. They have not been able to raise in this ending financial year. They have not been able to meet their target of raising the 1.6 trillion shillings that they were hoping to raise, obviously because also COVID came in. Now, with that, and about close to $1 billion of that just goes straight as a fast charge into paying our debts.
Let me ask this question.
Ask.
The previous budget, the previous year before COVID came in, were we able to meet?
I'm telling you that they borrowed money at the end of May. The money came in at the end of May to meet up for the previous fiscal year.
So it's not. So COVID is a good excuse,
but it's not the reason.
No, it isn't the reason.
It's not the reason.
So the question that perhaps should be asked is, do we have the wherewithal to be able to meet these demands with our local resources?
Of course not.
Yes.
Not. Daniel in Kisumu.
Yeah, good morning, CT and the team.
Good
morning.
Good morning.
Eric, how are you?
I am well, thank you.
You see, this budget now is not. We can't understand where it's going. For the low-income earners, there were measures that were put in place before with the president to push on them from the COVID extremities.
Yep.
But now the overtime and bonuses are being taxed.
Yep.
This is a shot on the arm, and there is also this for us the low income earners. There is this iron and steel imports which are also being taxed, and the Juakali sector solely depends on this. I think instead of removing the tax duties on diapers, they could have remove the tax duties on these exported goods like leather or electrical parts.
The imported
yes, those are very important for the microeconomy to grow. And I'm still wondering where our government will get this 1.17 trillion deficit, because the way measures that were put to at least attain that deficit, they are not forthcoming at all. So this budget, I think with our economy, it's not withstanding as far as things are concerned.
It's not a rescue budget.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Daniel. And before I finish,
yes,
there was this 900 billion which was to service the local debt. I don't know whether they had forethought about this 900 billion and how it was going to impact on the budget.
The 900 billion to repay loans.
Yeah, pay loans. Yes.
It has an impact because our money, however little money we are raising, it immediately, as the first charge, it's to repay the debt.
Yes.
Before you do anything else, before you buy a sweet, the first thing is lipa duka, yanani kitabu.
Yeah. Yeah, it has a very great impact, but on the revenue collections, I think it's far much of what we can attain at this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Have a good day in Kisumu.
Thank you.
0719-012-600. What do you think of that? You are heading somewhere with your point of, about meeting the budget, coming up with very lofty ideals and saying that this is what our budget is going to be, 3 trillion shillings. And you know very well that you can only raise 1.2 trillion shillings. Then the rest you have to plug gaps. You have to go to development partners. You have to go to seek these concessionary loans and grants. and whatever, even if Oku Attorney manages to rebalance our loan portfolio and say our commercial loans are going to be reduced in the next financial year and we start borrowing those longer term and cheaper loans, it's still a loan.
It's still a loan, but this current CS was actually dropped into some seriously boiling...
Scalding.
Yes.
Hot mafuta.
Yes, exactly. The problem isn't the budgeting process. The problem isn't the allocation of funds to whatever sectors we think are necessary. It hasn't been. The problem has been what we know we should do and whether we do it or not. Really quite simple. Like when you read that this amount of money has been allocated for roads, roads are not just roads. Infrastructure development is there to spur the growth of the economy. That's what it does.
Yeah.
When you build a road, it makes it possible for people to move goods and services. When you when you take power to the far-flung areas of the country, you're making it possible for the same thing to happen.
Yes.
You're actually enabling your economy to expand in a way that is possible. But we have something that can best be described as an infectious disease that seems to start from the very, very top of our system, and then it infects everybody. So this one, it isn't even a question of where do you stop. It has to stop from where it started.
At the head.
Yes, it has to. Right from the very top. As I said, if a whip is cracked and it's clear it's being cracked, you'd be amazed how people fall in line.
Yeah.
It'll almost be miraculous. They'll suddenly change.
We have a rotting fish.
Yes,
Where does it rot from?
it has been rotting for quite some time. So every time someone tells you this is what's going to happen, you actually hold your head.
You wonder. Let me pick these two calls and then we take a look at traffic and the conversation continues. Lydia in Parklands, good morning.
Good morning, Spice FM.
Good morning.
I always enjoy listening to your program, and I wanted to say, the honest, hard workers are the farmers, and these are my thoughts and my words. If your clothes are torn, it is okay. If you don't have money in your pocket, it is okay. But to stay alive, you must have water to drink, eat the food grown around you, and have a place to sleep. So don't joke with the farmers. They are the honest, hard workers.
Yeah.
Don't complain, oh, Uganda sending us milk cheaper. No, respect everybody who's providing food, cheaper or whatever. Don't. And the banning of plastics brought aflatoxin to our food. Banning of plastics. But they don't want to trouble those who are throwing plastics all over the road and into the rivers. They are not offended. Only the honest hard worker producing plastic to protect our food is being harassed.
So you're saying burning of plastics is what brought aflatoxin?
Yes. Because if you can cover your grains away from the rain and the dampness, that's aflatoxin. But arresting me for throwing plastic on the road, that is what it should be. Not to throw plastic all over the streets, into the rivers and into the sewer.
Okay. Lydia,
that is where it is wrong.
Thank you
it
very
should
much.
Go for recycling.
Recycle of the
Thank
plastics.
you.
Thank you. Geoffrey in Mombasa.
Yes, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Yes, I really appreciate what you're doing. I've been a keen listener to your conversation. And indeed, I really appreciate what you're doing. To react on the budget that was raised yesterday, it's really unfortunate that you can go, for instance, to the supermarket without enough money and believe you can purchase anything from there. That is too unfortunate. Okay, regarding the food security, there is an Indian friend who told me that these are saying that goes by, if you are led by businessmen, they'll always make you poor so that they can keep on thriving. I don't know if it's really applying to this country of ours, because sometimes you really find that even milk is poured because there's no enough reserve, and later on the milk prices are hiked. So I really ask myself, what is really happening?
There's always
is it
somebody
the business
who's playing
kind of
a game.
mind we have?
Yeah.
Yes, there must be something wrong with our leadership that need at least to be fixed. And it's not all about leadership. I think what we need are the right institutions in this country. Because the moment we have right institutions, I believe even those who will be elected in leadership position will always work according to the institutions that have been put in place. So what we actually need are right institutions for this country.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Geoffrey, and have a good day.
Have a good day. You too.
26 to 10. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at traffic, and then you can call in 0719-012-600. Your reaction to the budget, the 2020-2021 financial year budget. It's being billed as a budget that's going to revive the economy. It's a budget to the rescue. He says this is the one budget that's going to address all the things that have been brought by COVID-19. Do you feel that this is a budget that's going to revive this economy? Good morning.
Okay, guys, there's an absolute mess happening on Mombasa Road right now. The traffic is not moving at all. The question, though, being what is causing this, and we don't know at this point in time. It's been an hour from the Mlolongo to the SGR is what people have spent on the road this morning. And the turnoff then from Gateway Mall, trying to turn around on and going down towards town has been blocked off. So you have to go all the way to Mlolongo to now turn, because the traffic situation is crazy. And we see that now going on to the Greater Mombasa Road, guys. So if you are heading in this direction, please know that it's either you wait it out or you just really need to practice some patience. That's where we see the craziness happening this morning. We don't know where everybody's going, but yeah, everybody is there. Apart from that, everywhere else it seems to be flowing smoothly. A little bit of a hold up on Thika Road, but getting then to the Pangani underpass, it shouldn't be too terrible getting into the CBD. Okay, that's what it looks like now. And we'll see what it looks like in the evening. Hopefully everybody can get where they're going in good time.
We're talking about fish and the head, and ensuring basically if the head was resolute, if the head was very focused on getting things done, things would get done. I want to jump off on what Geoffrey was saying from Mombasa. If you look at the way we have things operating in this country, if we had strong institutions that were doing their job, then they'd ensure that everybody who gets into a position of authority is also doing their job, because they know that they are being checked, because they know that there's a prefect who's going to point them out or point a finger at them if they do it wrong. We have a situation where we have very many institutions, but many of these institutions then appear not to be able to function.
Institutions don't have a problem. These are inanimate structures.
It is the people in the institutions.
Focus on the real problem. It's not the institutions. Because
so how is it that all these institutions, then all of them have a problem with leadership?
Everybody across the board.
Yes, they do.
That the bowl that you're getting these ones from has an issue.
That's why I'm saying it's not as though the people who are in government, whichever ministry you think of, it's not as though there's been some massive changes since the previous government of Kibaki and then Kibaki and Raila. No. Not that much. People have changed. The normal attrition of people retiring, yes. But some massive change where you have a situation where they brought in a whole crop of new people. No, that's not really the case.
The same public service.
So if we could register success and there was good progress that was actually indicated over a period of time by these same people, so what happened? Same people. Same institutions. What happened? What happened?
If we're asking what happened, then we're looking.
Oh, we do know what happened. This is the thing. We don't know.
Yeah, because we're looking at a place. Are we then assuming at some point something was going well?
Look,
is the assumption
things even don't go well.
Is the
Things are
assumption-
made to go well.
so it is possible
We've seen
for
it.
order and operation to flow in a seamless manner?
Yes, we've seen it.
It is possible. It would seem, though, then there is an intentional circumvention of proper operations that then get us to the issues that we face.
It isn't even the circumvention of operations. It is the goal. If your goal is to allocate money to your cronies or buddies or to yourself,
So, as,
If-
and then showing that you're not beholden to the
yes,
people.
if your goal, and this is not what's in the budget. The budget doesn't state, this money, we're budgeting so that so and so and his
that
cronies.
CT
No. See,
And his 10 best friends can benefit. That's not what you say. We say,
No.
we are going to build. No, that's what we say. We say we're
Okay.
going to build dams.
Yeah.
We're
going to
going to
support
have
farmers.
200,000 farmers. We are going to build a railway. In fact, we're going to extend this railway.
It's part two.
We already have a railway that you could actually simply repair and it could still work. And then we say many great things. Konza City, we are not only going to revamp it, there's going to be Konza City part 3 and 4. We say all
No,
these
not
things.
finished part one.
There's going to be money for
Flood control.
rehabilitation of wells,
Yes.
water ponds,
Yes.
underground tanks,
Yes.
in the assholes.
Actually, we don't even need all those fancy things. No. But year in, year out, we do not see any changes. But the money is spent.
Yep.
Now, the Auditor General, the former Auditor General, was clear. He told us roughly how much we lose. We lose every year. When I read that thing, well, I wouldn't say I almost got a heart attack. I didn't. But I actually stopped breathing for some 5 seconds and said, what? But that's the money that could help you pay off these debts very easily.
There you go.
The number was 1 trillion shillings.
Yes, it was.
Now, what is the deficit right now? Is it not nearing 1 trillion shillings?
It's actually more.
It's more than, right?
It's
If
significantly
you're
more.
looking at spending 2.8 trillion and your capacity to raise is 1.4 trillion, then
So you're looking about 1.4
trillion.
trillion.
Yes, and even that 1.4 trillion, which we supposedly can raise, is iffy.
If you're not able to hit that target of
It's
1.4 trillion,
And through the year, by the time the fiscal year now comes to its head, and the former Auditor General tells us the same thing, that about 1 trillion or so odd shillings.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Really,
And the Auditor
what it was
General,
spent on.
eh,
His job is to report.
what he finds,
Exactly. He finds.
not
he
what,
tells you.
not what he thinks should happen.
He's not investigating. He's not asking questions. He's just saying, okay, we've
From
done
what
this,
I've
we've
looked-
done this,
it's
we've
not
done
what
this.
he's told also.
No,
It's not that
no,
someone
no.
came at you,
No,
whistleblowers.
no. He actually he audited.
Yes.
His officers audited through and through,
And this is
it
what they found.
came to this amount. And you know what? I don't know if to call it disdain, but the apparent nonchalance over this amount is even a little bit more heartbreaking than the initial shock that you face when you see the number, because it's like that information is put in the public domain, right? And then somebody says, "Oh, 1 trillion? We don't know where it went. All right, moving forward."
They are non-pulsed.
Come on.
Kabsa? Yani,
Okay.
okay. Problem. Oh no, let's just borrow some more.
Yeah.
They actually completely divorced from the reality of what the ordinary Kenyan faces. And the focus seems to be, how much more money can we make?
I'm heading back to what you were saying, CT, and this is what the Muragori of IPF was saying. To whom are you beholden?
Yes.
If you're starting from the point of CT, wewe utakula hii pesa, wacha tuweke kwa budget. If that is the starting point, then the whole thing is just paragasha.
Kabza, it is.
It's just gone. Because, look, so Geoffrey was saying, we're pouring milk on one side, right? That farmer who was rearing cattle so that this cattle can actually give him an income,
Yes.
has milked, has been unable to sell the milk, so therefore the income is gone. And then the next thing you're hearing is, oh, the price of milk has gone up.
And it's not as
And
though
it's-
milk is not needed in the country.
Yeah.
Man, it is needed.
It is.
It
a
is
huge
really
market.
needed.
There's huge market for milk. Lydia keeps talking about, why are you talking about people importing milk like as if they're dealing with contraband? Importation of milk is not contraband. It's not.
It is not. And we also have milk. We do.
Look at it from the point of, okay, so what do we need? We have milk. We need milk. Do we have people who are involved in
We do.
in
We have them.
agriculture? Yes. How can we support them? How can we ensure that this works? Okay. How can we ensure that this industry thrives? That is just one side. Milk. Everything else that we talk about, we're coming up with these grandiose projects and saying, we're going to have infrastructure development. We're going to have this and the other.
Okay, I think... okay, let's just take one example.
Check.
Right? And we talk about this thing being... I'm even scratching my head for the first time in a while. We talk about this thing saying, okay, it is it's supposedly a budget to the rescue. On paper, it might look like that. Let's just take one example.
The rescue of whom?
At all. Environment, water and floods. Okay?
Yep.
2.4 billion shillings for flood control, rehabilitation of wells, water pans and underground tanks in the ASALs, and to enhance the tree planting programs. For crying out loud. Okay, let's look at Budalangi, an area
So let's vet these things.
Let's look at Budalangi.
Flood control. That is where Budalangi comes
Will
in.
come in, right?
And
Budalangi
that's
has
where the
been
Kano
dealing.
Plains comes in.
Budalangi has been. We spoke to them here, and they talk about the fact that they've been dealing with this issue for the last God knows how long.
From antiquity.
According to this money that is supposed to be spent then is supposed to take care of problems such as that in permanency. This time next year, when the floods come back, according to this, is that Budalangi will not be on the agenda, for example.
The problem
as
of-
you are now, Eric,
Yeah.
are you convinced
No, I'm
that
not.
that is going to be sorted out?
When we speak to the people of Budalangi, they tell us that a number of issues. Yes, this project has been ongoing for a while. One of the key sticking points in the project is the lack of agreement by the locals. All right? The locals themselves are not agreeing on letting go of their land because of internal disagreements amongst family members. Now, this just calls for dispute resolution and sitting down with the people and agreeing on moving this thing forward. And then the project kicks off. So,
we also heard the
if you're not
people say
addressing that and then you're not
when they're
addressing
being asked
this-
to move to higher ground, and we heard the patronizing remarks that came from yet another government who said, look, if you don't want to move, we're going to move you. What did they say? If we move from this place, they are not going to do something about
will
this
not
issue.
deal with us.
They will move, we will be moved, and that's it. We will not be handled, we will not be sorted out. So that's what I'm telling you. These numbers look nice. It's nice to read things here.
Even when you
but
talk about
reality,
the others in the ASALs, rehabilitation of wells, water pans, and underground tanks, this is not new, all right? We've spoken to the European Union and other development partners, the ambassadors here, and they've told us one of our key projects that we support in this country is water. Water projects in the country, especially in the ASALs. The Swiss ambassador has told us this. The EU ambassador has told us this. They put in money, they work with communities, they work on this. The government every year comes up with this project
And
of
allocates
rehabilitation
money.
of ponds and wells and underground tanks and allocates money in the tune of billions, to the tune of billions of shillings every year. But where does the money go? What
Cronies.
happens to those things? It's cronyism. It's a budget for cronies. This is where it all starts. It's a budget for cronies. You talk about health. 1.7 billion shillings has been allocated to hire 5,000 health workers, to buy 20,000 beds and 50 walk-through sanitizers at border points and main hospitals. Let's audit the simplest of those ones. 50 walk-through sanitizers at border points and main hospitals. Are you seeing someone sitting somewhere and saying, we did a budget?
The walk-through sanitizers,
The walk-through
that I've
sanitizer.
heard of in Mombasa.
They are coming. You wait.
But I've heard of it, and I've even
And you've seen it at the Likoni Ferry.
Yes,
Okay.
that one you've
Yes.
seen.
And now, and even private companies have come up with walk-through sanitizers and deployed them in counties at the
As their own
marketplaces.
contributions,
Their own
right?
contributions. Now, some trader somewhere has seen, how can we do this? 50 walk-through sanitizers at border points and main hospitals. 50 border points and main... How many main hospitals do we have in this country? Right? Main hospitals. How
So-
many border points do we have? Just the border between Kenya and Tanzania border has how many border points? Start from the one in Kwale County, Lunga Lunga, go to Holili in Taita Taveta, go to Tarakea near Loitoktok, go to Namanga, go to Isebania. Those are already 5.
Keep moving.
This is just Tanzania.
Just Tanzania,
Yeah.
5. Go to Uganda, go to Somalia, go to Ethiopia, go to South Sudan. All those are border points, are they not? 50 are going. What are they going to do? Which of those places are you putting the 50?
It's just a
And
number.
then how
We're
many
gonna
main
plan.
main hospitals? Which main hospitals are you
Where
talking
you
about?
going to- where's the focus
referring
going to be?
sub-county hospitals?
Are you looking
referring
at
to level 5 or
level
6
5 or
hospitals?
level
What are you referring
What
to?
is this? 50. But some 50 are going to be procured. Some 50 are going to be
Where they will be put, only God knows.
You know, when I say top,
20,000 beds.
For which hospitals?
20,000 beds.
what I find strange, though, when you talk about beds, I know for a fact that the Mombasa County received donations. Some of the beds that they received the donation, the ones you see, they have placed in what was formerly the Polytechnic.
Yep.
They're very well spruced up. In fact, the model for other counties that you could talk of for COVID management. There are many resources that one can use that will help alleviate these problems that we talk about.
Yeah.
But no, they must be bought.
Let me remind you that health is a devolved function.
It is a default function.
So, in terms of equipping the hospitals in the counties, that is the work of the county governments. This should come from the money that is allocated to the counties in this budget. Okay? So, when the national government comes and tells you that we're buying 20,000 beds to be taken to hospitals, you have to start asking yourself, are you talking about because the only hospitals that you have control of are the national referral? Are you talking about Kenyatta, KU, and Moi teaching? Or are you talking about beds in the counties? And why are you getting yourself involved in counties by only doing a paltry 20,000 beds anyway? Unaingilia wapi inakuhusu nini? Just
not your
let
function.
the counties deal
It's
with
not
this
your
thing.
function.
Why are you saying that you're allocating money to buy 20,000
Let
beds?
me
Not your
ask-
function.
let me ask
and
the
it's not a
question of
donation
buying. Where
either
are we
from
buying them
national
from?
to county government.
Where are we buying them from? That's the other thing. Are we saying that these ones are going to be locally manufactured? We know, for example, Machakos County has said our beds, we are already working with the local Juakali sector. We've given them the specs, and the specs have come from KEBS, and we're telling them we want you guys to give us these beds, locally manufactured. County government, that's its function, that's what it's doing. National government, why are you doing beds?
Yes.
Yeah. The other money is going to 5,000 health workers. Remember, even when the president unveiled this stimulus package, he said, we're hiring the 5,000 health workers for a year. For a year. Okay? Now, the other issue still comes in. We still do not have a harmonized and centralized public service commission, it's called what the one that they're proposing, the Health Services Commission.
Services Commission.
That is one as nationalized and centralized one. So, in terms of recruitment of healthcare workers, this is a county function. Okay? So, this 1.7 billion shillings, is it going to now come to the county as a vote that goes into the county? Is it going to come as a donation by the national government to the county government so that the county governments can then hire the 50,000 and then you leave them with that burden? After 1 year, you're done. The county,
no longer a function.
These workers are employed by the county government. Then they start going on strike and saying, wait.
What's going on?
Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile, if according to this, they were not hired by the county government,
Nope.
essentially hired by national government.
I actually
So then
feel
what
health-
happens
health
after
should
the
not have
1
been
year?
devolved.
No,
It shouldn't have been
it
divulged.
shouldn't have been.
Bigger conversation which has been pushed by
The puppet
KMA,
strings are
by
still being pulled by
KMPDU,
national
by
government.
everybody.
Yeah.
Even doctors themselves are saying, let's have one nationalized commission. And it makes sense to everybody. All right? But now let's deal with what we are dealing with. Right now, as we are, since the first time that the government said 1 billion shillings of the money that is going has been allocated in the current financial year for the universal health coverage was going to recruit doctors, right? And medical workers to fight COVID. The interviews are still ongoing, by the way, don't forget. County governments, county public service boards are interviewing candidates for doctors. So already...
What is so complicated about that process?
It's going on. Okay, it's the due process of we advertised, they applied, we shortlisted, we are interviewing, we are hiring. You know the way the government operates. We do one and then the one takes 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks. So recruitment is still ongoing. Some county governments have been able to recruit a substantial number, others have not. 5,000 more in the next financial year to recruit another, to be recruited for
Yep.
I honestly don't feel like this budget has addressed the needs.
Keep these
people.
documents, keep these numbers, because in another, I mean, it was Alan, right, who spoke to us a few minutes ago and said, you know what?
In a few weeks,
In
we'll
a
have
few-
another supplementary.
Supplementary budgets are going to be a thing of this fiscal year. And it looks like there will be the need to pull funds from other coffers to be able to sort this out. And it sounds like all doom and gloom, but unfortunately, the things that we are seeing for which would be the winners here and how some development is going to take place, I don't see this happening.
I would ask a far simpler question. What do we actually need? Forget these lofty ideas that we keep coming up. What do we actually need to just get people moving on from day to day comfortably?
Yeah.
What do we need? You would find it very easy, and you would not have difficulties removing things from this by saying, actually, this
The
we
process
don't
of
need.
elimination then
Yes,
would
we
not be
don't
very
need.
difficult here.
It's not important. It is important when you're looking at large picture, 10 years time, blah, 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 development, progress, yes. But do we need it now?
It's interesting that you say that, because then look at the companies then that have been able to succeed, right? And they look and say, okay, there's a gap here that we must fill. What do the people actually need? Number one, they need to be able to speak one to the other at a very cheap rate. They need to be able to send money from one to the other also at a rate that they can afford, and that service needs to be up for them all the time. They then, with COVID times, what else do they need? They need some kind of connection when it comes to the internet. If we can fill those three things, then we'll find that at least we are moving in a forward trajectory. So I agree that it should not be filling the numbers because there's a necessity to fill the numbers, but filling the numbers and actually doing it because we see that this is the landscape and this is what is required at this point in time, what needs to happen. And using then that to translate then how you budget. It doesn't mean that because something has been done a certain way for the last donkey years that you now continue in that
It's
manner.
the only way.
Is the only way in which it can be
The only
done.
thing you change is the amount that you've allocated for each
Yeah,
of
but
these
the rest
sectors.
is the same.
Look, people have often compared the budgeting of a country to be not that different from budgeting for, let's say, a domestic setting.
Your house.
Yes, not really.
It's not different.
People even change the schools their children go to when they realize, you know something, I can't afford this. Reality.
Life changes, you change.
Change, but
You
school is
adapt
school.
immediately.
In fact, people have sold vehicles and said, I don't necessarily have to drive this car.
Yep.
Or I don't have to drive this model of car.
Yep.
That's called adjusting. Meaning, should things change, nothing stops you from acquiring
From
that
coming
car
back.
or even taking nothing. But for now, the reality is this.
Exactly.
If you do not make those changes, then you will collapse completely. Whatever you think is functioning will even cease to function if you do not take those steps yourself.
Does the political class accept that we are in problems? That's the question
How
that
can we be in
Muragori
problems and how
told
can we
us
be in
yesterday.
problems and we can still borrow?
Yeah. As long as the political class is not feeling the pinch, then nothing is
How
going to
can
change.
they feel the pinch when, as we correctly put it and repeatedly put it, is that they themselves are the ones who are at the heart of the problem.
Yep. And they're the beneficiaries. This
Very
2.79
direct.
trillion shillings
Yes.
is going to be spent by them.
For the majority, absolutely.
Right? I've got a comment here coming from Ian. He says, I'm listening to the budget conversation and I'm getting irritated. The 15 billion shillings for Vijana Mtaani, whatever. Do you know how many medium industries can be built in every county? Assume each take 50 million shillings. This is over 300 industries and the government has land. So it's just profiling the counties, setting up industries and adding value to the raw materials. It sucks to see a government waste human capacity this way by having them sweeping and cutting grass. It's unfortunate. Sums it all up.
There you go.
And, according to the government, as long as we're not kupatia cash handout to go and sweep the road and okota takataka,
You'll take it.
the government has really helped Vijana.
Now, if somebody comes up with a scheme like that, it tells you exactly how they're thinking. Are they really in touch with the reality of what's happening here? Huh? Should you not be creating a situation where these young people have hope? Stop paying them to sweep. Put that money in TVETs. Put that money in places where they can get trained, acquire a skill.
Yeah, even those small industries, like we keep talking about
Yes.
the Kariobangi light industries. Just go there, ensure that you're supporting that.
Yes.
It'll provide employment
For
many.
people whom, you see, the reason why businesses succeed and businesses succeed is because they add value. It's not really complicated. If a business adds value, believe me, it will continue
It will
succeeding because
succeed.
people see the value and they contribute to the value.
Yeah.
And that value that the people contribute is what you call profit. Now, when you have a government, yes, it's not the business of the government to actually do business, but it's their business to provide an environment in which business can
be
thrive.
done.
Yeah.
And business doesn't thrive on its own. It's the human resource that makes these businesses thrive. Now, if you are not encouraging the growth of this business or of these human resources so that there's continuity into the future,
You're failing.
There's nothing you're doing.
even that planning process of yours is a
failing.
complete waste of time.
It's
to
like
put
that
in money.
person who's playing drums for the mad person in the market. What is that?
He that beats the drum for the madman to dance is no better than the madman himself.
Sums it all up. Sums up today's conversation.
Yes.
Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room this week. Hey, is it Friday?
It would appear
It is,
so.
it is Friday.
It's Friday, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It's the Friday for this week.
Wow. Thank you. Join us again next week. Say goodbye, City.
Goodbye and let the conversation continue.
Goodbye.
And do.
Stay safe, guys. It's still important to do that. We are, after all, still living in COVID times.
Indeed. Have a good weekend. See you again on Monday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice it, yeah.
Spice up your life.